A desperate plea echoes from a terrified girl. She begs her classmates to just be her friend, but the clock on the wall is ticking down fast. On her knees, she promises anything to change her fate. Just then, someone else enters the room. Her desperate hope turns to pure, unadulterated terror. The classroom door is thrown open violently. A man in a lab coat appears, mocking her failure. The timer hits 0, and he declares her time is up. The penalty begins, with the whole class watching on. The monstrous figure looms over her, delivering a twisted lecture. He screams that anyone who fails this test doesn't deserve a future. And with a single brutal motion, her existence is erased. A boy with glasses watches in horror, realizing his world has changed. From the back of the room, another student takes in the grim scene. The girl's fate is sealed, a stark reminder of what happened. Just yesterday, when everything was still normal, we're introduced to our main character, Hayato Makabe. He tries to keep to himself, but he can't escape the whispers, or the cruel glares from his classmates. The weight of the classroom's judgment presses down on Hayato. He escapes to the hallway for a drink of water. The only lunch he can afford, but a group of girls approaches with clear intent. He's violently shoved from behind, his face hitting the faucet. The leader, Mai Nanasaka, angrily tells him to get out of her way. Stunned and soaked, Hayato tries to defend himself, but her clique just piles on, mocking him for being poor. He's left speechless by their cruelty. They strut away, having no time for so-called bottom feeders. Hayato catches his reflection in the window, soaked and bruised. He can only curse his own helplessness. With a heavy heart, he turns to leave. He slides open the door to his classroom, and every single eye turns to stare. The mockery begins almost immediately. They sneer, asking if he's showering at school now. He clenches his fist, trying to ignore their cruel words. But in a swift motion, his book is knocked to the floor. He looks up, his patience finally wearing thin. The standoff is broken by a man in a lab coat. He introduces himself as Mayakuzuka, sent by the government. The students are baffled by the sudden announcement. He gives a chilling smile, saying he'll be their teacher. He then reveals a government order in a small vial. Everyone must immediately put on the contact lenses inside. He assures them the lenses will auto-adjust for anyone. A student tries one on, amazed but still deeply confused. With a manic grin, he declares the experiment has begun. A girl asks what he means as a number appears beside her head. Hayato's eyes adjust to the strange new lenses. He can now see glowing numbers floating above his classmates. Mayakuzuka explains this is the friend counter, and they are all subjects in a friendship culling project. The scope of this twisted game is limited to their class alone. They're forbidden from making friends with anyone else. A clock on the wall begins a 24-hour countdown. The students listen in horror as the first rule is announced. After 24 hours, the person with the fewest friends will die. Mayakuzuka confirms the deadline with a chilling grin. A boy with glasses voices the class's disbelief. Another student, a girl with white hair, snaps back at him. He dismisses it as a joke and tries to remove the contact lens. He fumbles with his eye, determined to get it out. But the lens seems to react, glowing with a strange pink light. In a horrifying instant, the lens dissolves, and the boy collapses onto his desk, his life extinguished. Mayakuzuka's voice echoes, asking if they understand now. He issues a new chilling rule. Do not remove the contacts. Breaking this rule means the lenses will release a deadly poison. Hayato stares in shock, a glowing 0 floating above his head. Mayakuzuka carries a strange, splattered briefcase. The white-haired girl warns them that their connections now mean life or death. She tells them to use their heads if they want to survive. The reality of the situation sinks in across the classroom. For Hayato, the task feels utterly impossible. His only thought is to get out of there. He bolts from the classroom, trying to escape unnoticed. He runs as fast as his legs can carry him, but his escape is cut short by the sight of Mayakuzuka on the stairs. But he's not the only one trying to flee. He notices the number above the boy's head is green. The stranger asks if Hayato is also making a run for it. Hayato can only nod in agreement. Suddenly, he hears footsteps and urges the other boy to jump. Without a second thought, the boy climbs through the window. Hayato quickly follows suit, escaping the hallway. But the first boy loses his footing and tumbles to the ground. He lands hard, bracing himself on the grass. And in an instant, the deadly poison activates from his lenses. Hayato can only watch in disbelief from the window. But a hand suddenly grabs him from behind. It's the white-haired girl, demanding to know what he was thinking. She accuses him of using the other boy as a test subject. Hayato furiously denies her cold-hearted assessment. As the boy's life fades below, she explains the true nature of this experiment. It's about gaining trust and making others believe you're one of them. A grim metaphor plays out on the grass below, because when the time comes, you use them as stepping stones, and leave the fallen behind to survive. The white-haired girl notes his friend count is a perfect 0. She warns him that being at rock bottom makes him an easy target. The weight of that word sinks into Hayato's mind. As night falls, the school building feels more like a cage. Inside, the other students try to act normal, sharing food. But Hayato sits alone, his appetite completely gone. He watches them, wishing just one person would talk to him. But then the grim logic of the game dawns on him. Her warning echoes as he realizes their unspoken agreement. They're all planning to sacrifice him to save themselves. A voice crackles over the intercom announcing a change. Their phones are unlocked, but talking about the game is forbidden. The students immediately try to contact their families. Hayato hesitates before checking his own phone. A message from someone named Kisaki asks where he is, but another text from his mother overshadows it. It's the same old story. She needs money. Again, the school day finally ends, and he walks home defeated. Each step feels heavier than the last, but as he reaches his front door, he hears a strange voice from inside. He peeks in, hearing strange chants about fortune and desire. Hayato slides the door open, his expression hardening. Inside, his mother is with a strange man, performing some bizarre ritual. They celebrate as the man showers them in fake gold paper. The man turns to Hayato with a predatory grin, welcoming him. He then tries to perform some kind of blessing on our boy. His mother just snaps a photo thanking the man profusely. Priorities, I guess. As they welcome him back, another figure sits silently in the corner. A young girl with purple hair looks up, calling him her brother. The strange man looms over her, his smile turning sinister. He tells the young girl Kisaki to visit his dojo more often. Their mother just smiles, excited about all the fortune they'll receive. The man then turns his predatory gaze toward Hayato, suggesting it's about time he started contributing too. He demands an offering with a truly unhinged expression. His mother hands over what little money she has, as the man tells Hayato to start earning for their cause. He walks off, making a chilling remark about Kisaki following her mother's path. Hayato finally snaps, grabbing his sister's shoulders. He desperately warns her to stay away from that place. But his mother just screams in his face. She shoves him aside, completely unhinged. She questions his sanity, babbling about storing fortune, and warns him of misery in the next life if he doesn't comply. Clearly, she has her priorities straight. The crushing reality of his situation finally hits him. He's completely alone, falling into an abyss of despair. He looks at his phone where his mother's demand for money is splattered by the tears he can no longer hold back. If he dies, what will happen to his sister? Just then, a message from Kisaki appears, telling him not to worry. He makes a silent vow to survive this game and come back for her. The next day, he decides to wash his face and clear his head. He walks down the eerily quiet school hallway. But someone is standing in his path. It's a girl named Ami Shirano, with a friend count of 3. Hayato tries to walk past her without a word. He reaches for the door, ready to end the awkward encounter. But something in her expression makes him hesitate. She looks up with a hopeful smile and asks if he wants to be friends. Hayato is completely stunned by the sudden offer. He can't even process the word friends in relation to himself. But before he can answer, 2 other girls grab Ami from behind. They cheerfully pull her away, looking for all the world like besties. Announcing they have something to discuss, they drag her off down the hall. Hayato is left alone outside the restroom, completely bewildered by the strange encounter. He heads back to class, the moment still replaying in his mind. Inside, he sees Ami chatting happily with the same group of girls. He tries to ask her about their earlier conversation, but a harsh voice cuts him off. It's Mai Nanasaka, angrily demanding to know why he's bothering her friend. Hayato tries to explain his situation, but Mai is absolutely furious. She mockingly asks the class if anyone would ever want to be his friend. She then reveals a charm his mother sold her father for a ridiculous price. Hayato is stunned, realizing the true extent of his mother's cult scam. Mai makes a cruel accusation about his mother's methods of getting donations. She explains how the woman's actions destroyed her family and led to a divorce. Hayato tries to apologize, insisting he had nothing to do with it, but Mai rips the charm open, revealing a disgusting fingernail inside. She lunges toward him, screaming that he has no right to happiness. She cruelly suggests that dying for everyone else would be a great way to store up fortune. The school day drags on, a silent monument to their prison, and the clock on the wall ticks down the final hour. Hayato is paralyzed by visions of a gruesome end, his own fate fast approaching. Elsewhere in the class, Mai decides she's bored. A girl with a lower friend count tries to politely refuse her request, but Mai immediately threatens to revoke their so-called friendship. She snatches the book, a twisted lesson on how to cherish your friends. Other students whisper about her behavior but do nothing to stop it. Hayato can only watch. Stunned, they're worried about manga while he's about to die. He's completely out of ideas with no path to survival in sight. But then, a thought strikes another student. He decides to offer his own manga to Mai. It's an older series, but he figures it's better than nothing. He reaches into his desk, but his hand finds only empty space. He frantically empties his desk, realizing his manga is gone. He's certain it was there yesterday, which means someone stole it. He can't believe someone would resort to theft in a death game. His mind flashes back to the whispers about Mai's behavior. And suddenly, he realizes who the culprit must be. But looking over, he sees she isn't even reading the manga she just stole. With only 14 minutes left, Hayato knows he has to act now. Nearby, a girl complains that Mai never returned her electronic dictionary. A sudden realization dawns on Hayato's face. He quickly pulls out his phone, a plan forming in his mind. With a new sense of purpose, he begins to search for something. He then gets up from his desk and walks with intent. Approaching the two girls, he asks for a specific detail about the dictionary. They're stunned that he knows anything about it. Hayato then shows them a listing for the same item, sold online a week ago. The girl recognizes it instantly, furious that her name was just scribbled out. The girl with dark hair confronts Mai, accusing her of selling the dictionary. But Mai just feigns ignorance, completely unbothered. The girl shoves the phone forward, insisting the online account is hers. Her friend whispers a warning, terrified of going against Mai. But as she looks closer at the phone, she sees something else. Another listing shows the DVD set she lent to Mai. She's enraged, as the set had an irreplaceable artist's signature. Mai just smirks, coolly asking if they have any actual proof. That's when Hayato steps forward, demanding to see her phone. He then reveals his own find, an extremely rare manga with only 100 copies sold. The girl with dark hair realizes the sound they just heard was a purchase notification. Mai's face contorts with rage as the pieces click into place. Hayato explains that he just bought the manga she listed for sale. She furiously denies the accusation, screaming that she's innocent. But Hayato leans in, explaining the shipping date was set for weeks later. And since the manga is right here, he'll just take it now. He hands the stolen book back to its rightful owner. The girl with purple hair turns to Mai, declaring she won't be friends with a thief. Mai can only stare in disbelief, her world collapsing around her. Her other friends follow suit, deciding Hayato is a much better ally. They recall how Mai was the first to suggest sacrificing Hayato. Another girl agrees, calling her behavior terrifying. And just like that, her friend count plummets to 1. Her last remaining ally waves a casual goodbye, severing the final tie. Her number hits 0, and she collapses in pure, unadulterated panic. The clock on the wall shows just over 4 minutes remaining. She screams about being betrayed, apparently forgetting how this all started. But her former friends are just getting started, listing all her selfish acts. Even a quiet student admits she always wished they were in different classes. She's left on the floor, told that this is entirely her own fault. One of Mai's former friends feels strangely refreshed by the turn of events. She turns to Hayato, offering him her friendship. He can hardly believe what he's hearing. Another girl quickly chimes in, asking the same question. His friend count jumps to 2, and he realizes he's safe. But for Mai, the terror is just beginning to sink in. With only 3 minutes left, her fate is sealed. She lets out a desperate, horrified scream. She crawls on the floor, begging her former friends for mercy. But they just look down on her, coldly rejecting her plea. Mai scrambles on the floor, her reign of terror completely shattered. Through tears of pure desperation, she begs for anyone to help her. Her pleas to be friends echo through the silent classroom. With only 17 seconds left, the other students can only watch in fear. She promises to do anything, a desperate vow to escape her fate. Just then, the classroom door is thrown open violently. Mayakuzuka appears, mocking her for failing to control her own social standing. The timer hits 0, and her last thought is of the one thing she couldn't keep. In a horrifying flash of pink light, the penalty is brutally carried out. Hayato watches, knowing he survived and can now see his sister again. The white-haired girl explains how some people fall for petty reasons. As Mai's remains are cleaned up, she notes the girl lost everyone's trust. And in the end, no one was there to save her. She only created hatred, earning her the ultimate punishment. The other students can only watch, the grim reality sinking in. But Mayakuzuka announces a new rule. Only the largest group will survive. The boy with glasses is stunned that the game is continuing. Suddenly, all the friend counters above their heads reset completely back to 0. A new countdown begins, with the deadline set for the next day. The boy with glasses realizes that if only the largest group survives, then there's a way they can all make it out alive. He stands up, rallying the class with a hopeful declaration. But the white-haired girl watches with a cold, unimpressed stare. A classmate asks him to explain what he means. He proposes that if everyone becomes friends, they'll form one single group. The idea spreads, giving the students a new sense of hope. But a tough-looking student named Tomitaka isn't on board. He scoffs at the idea of befriending people he considers trash. He makes it clear that he chooses his allies very carefully. The white-haired girl watches with a twisted smile, fascinated by the chaos. Tomitaka is left on his desk as another group walks past. Elsewhere, a student named Brandon has already formed a powerful clique. He throws his head back, finishing a drink with total confidence. He then turns to his followers with a triumphant grin. His group has already grown to 12 people, a clear majority. The boy with glasses watches, his hopeful expression fading. He realizes that with Brandon's group this large, his plan is impossible. He rushes forward, pleading with Brandon to unite the class. But Brandon just scoffs, mocking his desperate gasps for unity. The grim reality dawns on the smaller groups. A green-haired student named Sora Hosoya whispers to the boy with glasses. He points out Brandon's expensive gold watch, his flashy diamond earring, and the gold chain around his neck. Sora scoffs, saying Brandon just wants to look cool. He then approaches Brandon, offering to be his errand boy. Brandon accepts his offer, welcoming him aboard. And just like that, Sora's friend count jumps to 13. Brandon's followers then issue an ultimatum to the class, join or die. The remaining students look on with uncertainty. 2 girls desperately plead to be let into the group. Sora explains that all you have to do is flatter the leader. He urges the boy with glasses to join Brandon's group and survive, but he's cut off, realizing there's one more condition. Brandon reveals the entry fee, 100,000 yen. Friendship, now with a convenient price tag. Sora and the boy with glasses stare in disbelief. Brandon smirks, explaining that he chooses his friends carefully. The sheer cost of survival sends a shock through Sora. A girl cries out that she can't possibly afford it. The boy with glasses can only ask why. Mayakuzuka explains that for some, this hell is a hunting ground. The boy's plea for unity echoes in his mind. Mayakuzuka's voice cuts in, calling his idealism beautiful. But he adds that such correctness is useless in this game. With a casual wave, he leaves them to their fate until tomorrow. Brandon, ever the businessman, says he accepts electronic payments. He then raises the price of friendship to a cool 1 million yen. The remaining students are left isolated, unable to pay the fee. Sora turns to Hayato, begging for a loan he knows is impossible. Hayato explains that he can't even afford it for himself. Brandon tries to rally the remaining students with a false sense of unity. He tells them to call their parents or friends for help. But Sora admits he's in the same boat with no one to turn to. Brandon screams that the price will go up if they don't hurry. Other students desperately call home, lying about needing money for school. The reality sinks in for one girl, who realizes her life has a price tag. The boy with glasses tries to calm the remaining outcasts. He acknowledges that Brandon's group is the largest, but if they unite, they can form a group of 10 and turn the tables. But Brandon just scoffs, confident no one can be swayed from his side. A girl with purple hair shows the boy with glasses her phone. She reveals Brandon's social media, filled with pictures of his lavish lifestyle. The boy is stunned, wondering how a student could be so wealthy. She explains the rumors. He's running a pyramid scheme. It's just gossip, but his expensive watch tells its own story. In exchange for their cooperation and the entry fee, he showers his followers with money and expensive gifts. But one of the remaining students, a girl named Shiori, stands up in protest. She insists that Brandon's way of buying loyalty is just plain wrong. She insists that even his followers are human. But Brandon just lights a cigarette, completely unfazed. Shiori pleads with them not to be fooled by petty cash. Brandon interrupts, grabbing one of his own followers. He holds the boy's arm, the lit cigarette held close. With a sinister grin, he asks what she means by petty cash. He then presses the burning end against the boy's skin. He tells her not to underestimate the power of money. He asks if anyone would endure that for her precious speech. He slams his foot on a desk, warning them not to underestimate their bond. He screams that if their lives are so precious, they should hurry up and pay. Shiori is left speechless by his brutal display of power. Another girl tells her friend that their lives are worth more than the fee. The boy with glasses can only watch in frustration. Haunted by the memory of Mai's fate, another student caves. The group of outcasts shrinks even further. They watch in disbelief as their allies abandon them. But the betrayal cuts deeper than they could have imagined. A girl stares in shock, reminding her friend they've known each other for years. But the other girl coldly states that her own survival is worth the price. Hayato watches on, his own counter still a stark 0. Another student, Wataru Sasaba, falls to his knees before Brandon. He desperately pleads his case, unable to pay the exorbitant fee. Brandon looks down, pretending to be merciful, but he says it wouldn't be fair to let him in for free. Wataru promises he'll do absolutely anything. With a cruel smile, Brandon proposes an entrance exam. Wataru looks up, completely bewildered. Brandon says he'll test if the boy's work is worth the price of entry. He then explains that he's been getting ambushed at the school gate lately. He grabs Wataru by the collar, his grip tightening. He wants Wataru to drive away the people who've been bothering him. He then calls over another follower named Ken and orders him to be Wataru's opponent. Ken slips on a pair of brass knuckles, ready for a fight. Wataru can only stare, completely caught off guard. But Ken doesn't wait for an answer, his fist clenched tight. He lands a brutal punch right across Wataru's face. The boy stumbles back, blood dripping from his nose. Ken just yells at him, demanding he fight back. Wataru collapses to the floor, trying to brace himself. Tears stream down his face, his spirit completely broken. Ken scoffs, calling him a pathetic failure, but Brandon just orders him to keep going. Ken notes that Wataru has absolutely 0 fighting sense. Brandon then kneels down, telling the boy to remember carefully. Exactly how Mai met her end. The horrifying memory flashes before his eyes, a stark warning of his own fate. Fueled by pure terror, Wataru finally snaps. He lunges forward, grabbing Ken with a desperate surge of adrenaline. He shoves Ken back with a desperate roar. The entire class watches the brutal spectacle unfold. Ken stumbles back, furious at the sudden resistance. Wataru lands a solid punch right on his opponent's jaw. The force sends Ken crashing into the classroom window. Enraged, Ken grabs Wataru, accusing him of making him look bad. The boy with glasses screams a warning about the open window, but Ken ignores him, his anger completely blinding him. Wataru's eyes widen in terror as he's pushed closer to the edge. He's held precariously over the broken ledge, his life hanging by a thread. Wataru plummets through the broken glass, his hand outstretched. In a horrifying flash of pink light, the penalty is carried out. Ken can only stare down from the window in stunned silence. He's completely bewildered by what just happened. The boy with glasses realizes the horrifying truth of the situation. Going outside the window is an escape attempt, triggering an instant penalty. Brandon praises Ken for a job well done, calling the other boy a scarecrow. Ken realizes the outcome was decided from the very beginning. Brandon explains it was a show to justify the high price of their survival. The horrifying realization hits Ken. He almost died, too. Brandon casually calls out to another one of his followers. The purple-haired boy snaps, furious at what just happened. But Brandon just glares, demanding a light for his cigarette. The boy's anger vanishes as he scrambles to obey. The boy with glasses watches the display of absolute control. He realizes Wataru was never going to be accepted into the group. He clenches his fist, knowing their only option is to pay. And that Brandon's extortion won't end with this game. He declares that they have to break his hold on the class. But Sora can only ask how they could possibly succeed. Sora insists that Brandon's money and power make him unbeatable. But the boy with glasses is determined to find a way. Just then, his phone buzzes with a message from his mother. She plans to sell his late father's collection of books and manga. He can't believe this is happening, especially now. He quickly texts back, begging her not to sell the mementos. A memory of happier times with his father flashes through his mind, but his mother coldly replies that his father's reincarnation depends on it. He realizes that money will just go to the same cult leader. He looks back at Brandon, realizing everyone is being fooled by appearances. He realizes both the cult leader and Brandon are the same, using different methods to exploit people's weaknesses. He decides that to win, he must become just like them. With a new resolve, he turns on his heel. His classmates call out as he suddenly leaves the room. He sprints down the hallway, searching for something specific. His destination is the school library. He scans the shelves, his eyes darting across the spines. He finally pulls out a thick, illustrated encyclopedia. With a confident grin, he declares this book is their salvation. As the sun begins to set on the school, the classroom remains fractured and tense. Sora worries aloud that Hayato still hasn't come back. He and the girl beside him look on with concern. Brandon, bored with the silence, proposes a little game. Elsewhere, another powerful group has already formed. The girl warns Sora not to make eye contact with them, but Brandon just grins, saying he likes a challenge. He mocks the outcast for hiding in the corner. Just then, a figure rises from the back of the room. It's Brandon, who rises with a confident smirk. He claims what happened to Wataru was just an accident. He insists he's human and didn't want to see anyone die. A likely story. With a sinister grin, he proposes a new challenge, a tug of war. Sora looks up, completely baffled by the strange proposal. Brandon tells them not to worry, dismissing it as just a simple game. As night falls, the school remains a silent, illuminated prison. A makeshift rope is laid out across the classroom floor. Brandon sits like a king, his followers ready to begin the contest. But Sora immediately points out the obvious imbalance in their numbers. Brandon side notes that the opposing team has just one person, and it's Shiori standing alone and looking terrified. Sora and his friend are confused, thinking this will be an easy victory. But Brandon grins, announcing that all the players have arrived. He then asks if the other side is ready for the game. Just then, 2 students enter carrying heavy buckets. They set the mysterious containers down on the floor. Sora demands to know what's inside them. Brandon grins, calling them their special glass slippers. The horrifying realization of his plan dawns on Shiori. Inside the buckets are shards of broken glass, and Shiori recoils in horror. But Brandon just grins, telling her she has no choice in the matter. Sora and the others can only watch, their own counters still at 0. A stark contrast to Brandon's group, who all share a count of 18. With no other option, Shiori is forced to step into the bucket. Her foot presses down into the razor-sharp glass. Her face contorts in agony as the shards cut into her skin. Brandon just screams at her to hurry up and get on with it. She stands with both feet in the buckets, crying out in pure torment. And then, Brandon turns his attention to Sora, ordering him to do the same. Sora can only stare in horror, sweat beading on his face. With no other choice, he steps into the bucket of broken glass. Brandon snaps his fingers, declaring the game has officially started. The tug-of-war begins, with Shiori pulling for her life. Brandon screams at them, reminding them what happens if they lose. Shiori cries out in desperation, promising to win. Her teammate grits her teeth, the pain becoming unbearable. But her fear of angering Brandon is far greater. On the other side, the outcasts pull with all their might. But they're no match for the larger group and are dragged to the floor. The floor is littered with broken glass and signs of a brutal game. Just then, Hayato returns to the classroom. He screams, demanding to know what they're doing. Sora explains that Brandon promised him a spot if he won. He tells the others to go, convinced this is his only path. But Brandon just scoffs, saying, "This is the only way to survive." The defeated outcasts help each other limp from the room. In a quiet corner, a single candle flickers in the dark. Hayato carefully tends to Sora's injured foot. But Sora has lost all hope, certain he's going to die tomorrow. Sora insists that staying with them will ruin his chances with Brandon's group. But Hayato counters, saying there's another way to survive. Sora can only look down, his hope completely gone. Hayato announces he has a plan, but it will take time. Sora calls out his name, but Hayato is already walking away. He disappears down the hallway, leaving them to wait. Meanwhile, the clock on the wall continues its relentless countdown. The girl panics, realizing how little time they have left. But Sora is out of ideas, his spirit completely broken. The girl declares she won't die like this, her fear turning to resolve. Just then, Brandon's group appears in the doorway. He smirks, gloating that he was right all along. Sora wonders where Hayato is, but the girl assumes he's already dead. With all hope lost, she turns to the only power left in the room. She falls to the floor, begging Brandon to let her join his group. Brandon looks down at her, then turns his gaze to Sora. Defeated, Sora falls to his knees, convinced this is his only way out. He joins the girl, begging for another chance to prove his worth. As they bow, a pair of pliers is tossed onto the floor in front of them. Brandon gives them a horrifying order, a new test of loyalty and pain. Brandon declares that the fun entrance exam is about to begin. But just then, the classroom door slides open. Hayato returns, announcing he's not here for any test. He walks in with a newfound steely resolve. Sora and the girl look up, stunned by his sudden appearance. The girl desperately pleads for him to join them in begging. But Hayato walks right past Brandon's group without a second glance. Sora screams that in the end they had no other choice. Hayato's gaze falls on the pliers lying on the floor. He calmly tells them both to stay right where they are. He tosses the pliers aside, saying there's no need for that with so little time left. Brandon glares back, his friend count a solid 18. He kicks a bucket aside, demanding to know what Hayato means. Hayato calmly explains that he's talking about Brandon's group. The bully seethes with rage, completely baffled. Hayato clarifies that they're the ones who are about to be erased. Brandon screams at him not to be so cocky and hurls a water bottle, but Hayato dodges the projectile with a steely gaze. The bottle clatters harmlessly to the floor beside him. Hayato declares that his group will become the largest. He offers Brandon's followers a final chance to switch sides, but one of them furiously rejects the idea, saying they paid for their spot. Brandon scoffs at the numbers, mocking Hayato for even dreaming of a comeback. But Hayato calmly replies that reality is about to be reversed. He clutches the book he retrieved from the library, his secret weapon. He then calls out to a specific member of Brandon's group, Ken. Brandon watches in confusion as his follower turns away from him. Ken walks right past his leader, ignoring his calls completely. He reaches out to Hayato, and in an instant, Hayato's friend count jumps to 4. As they shake hands, the rest of the group can only stare in utter disbelief. Brandon screams at Ken, demanding to know what he's thinking. But it's not just Ken. More of his followers begin to walk away. One of them reminds Hayato to keep his promise. The rest of the class watches in stunned silence. His remaining followers panic as their friend counts plummet. Brandon furiously orders them not to move an inch. He glares at Hayato's new group, his authority completely shattered. One of the defectors tosses a gold ring back at him, declaring that he no longer owes Brandon anything. Another follows suit, taking off a bracelet he was given. Another girl holds up a small earring, a token of her former loyalty. A pile of rejected jewelry grows on the desk, a monument to broken bonds. Brandon can only watch in fury as his empire crumbles before his eyes. His remaining followers are stunned, wondering why everyone is defecting. Hayato knows he has less than 20 minutes to turn the tables completely. Brandon turns to his last few allies, demanding to know what they'll do. But they can only stare back, completely lost and confused. 2 of them immediately turn to Hayato, begging to join his group. With a calm expression, our boy simply agrees. The last of Brandon's crew realizes they're the only ones left. The last of Brandon's followers makes her choice. She and her friend turn to Hayato, begging to join his side. With a confident smile, he welcomes them aboard. Brandon is left completely alone, his entire empire gone. His friend count hits 0 and he can't process his own downfall. Hayato tells his new allies that their fear of death is finally over. Sora and the girls celebrate, claiming they believed in him all along. Sora even teases her for thinking Hayato had abandoned them, but Hayato just smiles, understanding why they lost hope. Meanwhile, Brandon snaps, grabbing a defector in a blind rage, but Hayato grabs his arm, stopping the attack cold. He tells the fallen king that his desperate struggles are pathetic, reminding him that it's now 20 against 1. Brandon can only choke on his own rage, completely powerless. The new majority stands united behind their new leader. Defeated, Brandon finally caves, offering to join Hayato's group. Hayato accepts with a wide, welcoming grin, but he adds that there's just one small condition. After all, he chooses his friends very carefully. Brandon can only stare in fury, realizing the game isn't over. The class immediately turns on Brandon, calling out his hypocrisy. One girl recalls the brutal tug-of-war he forced them into. Others demand a refund for the friendship fee he extorted. Overwhelmed, Brandon finally asks Hayato for his condition. Hayato's demand is simple: hand over all the money he has. Brandon is completely stunned by the request. Hayato clarifies it includes all cash and electronic funds. He then picks up the pliers, offering a much darker alternative. The threat hangs heavy in the air, a promise of pain. Defeated, Brandon clutches his phone, his reign officially over. Brandon shows his phone, revealing over 1.5 million yen. But Hayato points out that he's still hiding something. He reaches under a desk and pulls out a red pouch. Hayato holds it up, a final piece of forgotten leverage. With less than 5 minutes left, he tells Brandon to stop haggling. Inside the pouch is another 2.5 million yen in cash. Brandon falls to his knees, finally broken, and begs to be saved. Hayato clutches the money, his patience finally snapping. He screams that for the sake of these paper scraps, Brandon drove Wataru to his death, and asks if this money is truly worth more than a human life. He tells Brandon that he's been playing with people's lives. A lesson he's about to learn the hard way. Life is not a toy, and if Brandon wants to be his friend, he'd better remember that. Just then, the clock on the wall finally hits 0. The other students can only watch, tears of relief streaming down their faces. The entire class waits in silence for the penalty to begin. Sora looks on, his own survival now guaranteed. Hayato's group is now the largest, with a count of 21, and Brandon, now a member of that group, is safe. Sora and the girls celebrate, demanding to know how Hayato managed to turn everyone to his side. Hayato holds up a bag stuffed with cash, revealing his secret weapon. He explains that at first glance it looks like a fortune, and with this illusion of wealth, he bribed every single one of Brandon's followers. The top bill was just a photocopy from the encyclopedia he found, with the rest being blank paper. He sold them a story about it being a delivery from his mother, the cult's treasurer. Sora is stunned by the sheer audacity of the plan, but Hayato just smiles, saying the result is all that matters. One of the defectors explains how the 1.5 million was split among them, promising to pay back the rest. Brandon can only kneel in defeat, realizing his loyal followers were bought for a pittance. The white-haired girl watches from the sidelines, musing on the nature of friendship and trust. She concludes that in this game, all those lofty ideals were just money in disguise. She notes that those who rely on fakes can easily fool themselves. With a terrifying grin, she continues her twisted analysis. She muses that most of them never knew what was real to begin with. Just then, Mayakuzuka appears, congratulating them on a job well done. He turns with a sinister smile, telling them to follow him. The class walks in silence, unsure of what comes next. He leads them to the school's home economics room. Inside, they find tables set with steaming bowls of food. They realize there are name cards placed at each setting. Mayakuzuka instructs them to sit in groups of 7 at each table. He announces a small party to celebrate their hard work. The students stare in awe at the steaming hot pot. A student named Naohiko raises his chopsticks with a question. He asks the white-haired girl if they have any ponzu sauce. Her eyes flash with a sudden, terrifying red glow. She explodes, screaming at him not to disrespect the broth. Ami Shirano wishes she could share this meal with her little brothers. She smiles, explaining that she has 3 of them at home. The mention of family sends a jolt through Hayato. A classmate pats his back, telling him to chew his food properly. 2 of his new allies admit they're surprised he survived this long. Another student jokes that maybe his mother's fingernail charm actually worked. A girl scolds him for bringing up something so disgusting during dinner. But another classmate tells them not to underestimate Hayato. The boy quickly backpedals, saying he was just trying to lighten the mood. The girl offers him more food, a small moment of peace in the chaos. For a brief moment, they almost feel like normal high school students. Across the table, the boy with glasses watches the hot pot simmer. He makes a vow to survive and go home to his family. But just then, all their friend counters begin to glitch and distort. The numbers above their heads have all changed to 5. Miyakuzuka explains the counters now show the number of people at each table, but a student points out there are 7 of them, not 5. With a twisted grin, he clarifies that the counter only tracks their allies. He reveals that anyone plotting to poison the others isn't counted. The students look around in horror, the word poison hanging in the air. He then announces the banquet's climax, telling them to open their chopstick sleeves. He warns them to stay silent as they carefully open the paper sleeves. Inside, a single character is written, identifying the reader's role. But the full message reveals a terrifying truth. There's another poisoner. The boy with glasses clenches his fist, furious at this new twist. After everything they've been through to survive, the game is still trying to take their lives. He refuses to watch anyone else die. Mayakuzuka pulls down a projector screen to explain the new rules. He reveals they'll be divided into guests and poisoners. The counter now shows only trustworthy friends, excluding the traitors. The boy with glasses realizes they have no choice but to play. Hayato thinks of his sister, vowing to survive no matter the cost. Miyakuzuka then begins the game, calling for the wolfmen to enter. 3 wolf-headed figures in suits appear to collect the sleeves. Mayakuzuka explains this banquet will consist of 3 rounds. In the banquet phase, they must choose 1 person to exile. Then, in the poisoning phase, they'll eat from the hot pot. A girl with purple hair asks what it means to be exiled. He gleefully explains that exile means severing all ties forever. Suddenly, a strange device is attached to a student's waist. She cries out in shock, realizing that exile means death. Mayakuzuka reveals the penalty will be carried out with these tools. The device is secured, a grim promise of what's to come. The student with the device realizes its grim purpose. Mayakuzuka explains that during serving, the poisoner will secretly choose a victim. He then illustrates the poison's potency with a rather graphic example. The students at the table look at each other with newfound suspicion, and to make matters worse, every single bite must be eaten. The weight of this new twisted game crushes their spirits. The guests win if they outnumber the poisoners after 3 rounds. But if the poisoners equal the guests, everyone else dies. A student realizes the game is a twisted version of a classic. Mayakuzuka gleefully announces the start of Poisoning Werewolf. A girl realizes this is just another killing game, but Mayakuzuka tells them not to worry. He reveals a special case for this round. The poison can be neutralized with an antidote. He explains that the antidote master can save 1 person by neutralizing the poison on their plate. But there's a catch. They can't save themselves. With a manic grin, he begins the first banquet phase. A wolf-headed figure sets down an hourglass, giving them 3 minutes to decide who to exile. The accusations begin almost immediately. A red-haired student points out the obvious flaw in this plan. Another girl panics, wondering how they can decide with no clues. But the boy with glasses has a plan, his gaze sharp and focused. He proposes a simple test that only a guest could answer. A boy with spiky hair immediately raises his hand, declaring his innocence. The red-haired student follows suit, his expression unreadable. An orange-haired boy also raises his hand in agreement. The girl who was just panicking now looks determined. The purple-haired girl questions the suddenness of this test, and a blonde girl hesitantly agrees to go along with it. The boy with glasses demands that those who raise their hands prove they are guests. The others immediately call out the impossibility, but now Hiko insists he can. He proudly declares that the word guest was written in large black letters. But the purple-haired girl points out the obvious flaw in his logic. The red-haired girl agrees, saying he's only proving his own foolishness. Another girl asks Hayato why he's wasting their precious time on this. The red-haired girl suggests they just exile the two idiots at the table. Now Hiko can only stare back in utter shock at the suggestion. The blonde girl nervously tries to de-escalate the situation. The boy with glasses sits in silence, his brilliant plan having backfired spectacularly. But the orange-haired boy just grins with confidence. He declares that he's finally found it. Thanks to the chaos, he's identified one very suspicious person. The others immediately protest their innocence. The spiky-haired boy insists he's not the one. But the orange-haired boy explains his logic. He accuses Hayato of being a poisoner in disguise. Every eye at the table turns to our boy, but Hayato calmly denies it, stating he's a guest. The orange-haired boy demands to know why Hayato wasted their time, but Hayato explains the test revealed two key facts. A poisoner would hesitate, worried about a hidden trap. So now Hiko, who acted first, can likely be trusted. Now Hiko is thrilled, immediately declaring Hayato a trusted ally. The blonde girl can't believe the sheer stupidity of this logic, but she realizes that even this can be a useful tool. She then asks about the second part of his plan. Hayato reveals that one person hesitated for too long. He turns to the blonde girl, putting her on the spot. She frantically insists she's a guest, claiming the question just caught her off guard. But the orange-haired boy calls her a terrible liar, declaring she's the other poisoner. He grins, realizing that if they exile her, they'll gain a massive advantage. He claims he saw her get flustered when she first opened her chopstick sleeve. Ami can only deny the accusation, her voice filled with panic. Now Hiko apologizes, saying they can't afford to let a poisoner live. As the sand in the hourglass runs out, she desperately pleads her case. The orange-haired boy casts his vote for Ami, asking the others to join him. The other girls at the table remain silent, their expressions unreadable. A single tear falls from Ami's eye as her fate is decided by the group. But Hayato leans back, calmly stating he has no intention of voting for Ami. The others are stunned, reminding him he was the one who called her suspicious. He clarifies that he only said she might not be a guest, not a poisoner. Semantics are fun, especially in a death game. The purple-haired girl has a sudden realization, wondering if Ami is the antidote master. The orange-haired boy grits his teeth, frustrated by this new theory. The spiky-haired boy argues that she should have revealed her role sooner. But the purple-haired girl points out that doing so would have made her a target. Myakuzuka reminds them they have less than a minute left to decide. But Hayato's inner thoughts reveal a different truth. Ami isn't the antidote master. The others demand to know why he's so sure, their confusion growing. But another girl, Erika, makes a shocking declaration. She is the antidote master. Ami can only stare back in complete disbelief. The table erupts into chaos, demanding to know who's telling the truth. The boy with glasses realizes they can't risk exiling either of them now. The orange-haired boy then turns the accusation on Kanai, asking if she's a poisoner since she also hesitated. The others dismiss the idea, noting she was just watching the situation. Kanai furiously defends herself, saying she was just confused by Hayato's plan. She then brings up Mai's fate, calling Hayato a scary person. But Ami defends him, saying he had no other choice to survive. But the orange-haired boy turns the accusation back on her, reminding her they were the ones who abandoned Mai to her fate. The spiky-haired boy questions her hostility toward Hayato, which leads the orange-haired boy to a sudden conclusion. If she's against Hayato, she must be a poisoner. Another girl, Sei, jumps to her defense, claiming Kanai is just naturally suspicious, but her eagerness only makes them both look guilty. The white-haired girl chimes in, recalling how they abandoned Mai, and calling them far less trustworthy than anyone else at the table. With a manic grin, she declares that it's finally time to vote. The students are instructed to close their eyes for the vote. Myakuzuka explains the process, a fair and balanced system for sure. A wolf-headed figure begins to tap each of their shoulders. In the darkness, fingers point, sealing someone's fate. Myakuzuka watches with a predatory, knowing grin. He announces that the votes have been tallied, and the one to be exiled has been chosen. The results are revealed, and Kanai has the most votes against her. She panics, trying to stop the device now activating at her waist. As a wolfman looms over her, she screams for them to stop. Mekuzuka announces it's time to bid farewell to the outcast. The device on her waist glows with a terrifying red light, and in a brutal flash, her existence is violently erased. Her time at the banquet is officially over. Ami stares in horror as a bowl is placed before her. The friend counters above their heads have all dropped to 4. They realize with dawning terror that Kanai was just a guest. Great job, team. A wolf-headed figure begins to serve the hot pot. Maya Kazuka announces the start of the poisoning phase. He instructs them all to close their eyes and look down. Maya Kazuka warns them that if any guest peeks, they will die. He then instructs the poisoners to point to their target. In the darkness, a finger extends, sealing someone's fate. The orange-haired boy grins, revealing himself as a poisoner. The rest of the table waits in silence, completely vulnerable. Maya Kazuka confirms the target has been chosen and now turns to the special roles. The antidote master is instructed to open their eyes and choose. A drop of green liquid falls into a bowl, a single act of salvation. With all choices made, he tells them to pick up their chopsticks and eat. Now Hiko stares at his bowl, realizing he has no choice but to comply. With no other choice, they take the first bite. Hayato and the others eat in silence, each chew a gamble. They consume a poison strong enough to fell an elephant. The meal ends and a heavy silence hangs in the air. But no one collapses. The antidote master saved the target. Now Hiko cheers, calling their hidden protector invincible. But the orange-haired boy seethes, his plan to kill a classmate foiled. The game moves on, beginning the second round of accusations. The red-haired girl panics, screaming that they killed an innocent person. She turns on Hayato, blaming his test for getting Kanai exiled. Sei continues to scream at Hayato, blaming him for the chaos. But now Hiko is secretly thrilled, hoping to get Hayato exiled next. Ken joins in, shifting the blame for his own words onto Hayato's test. But Ami jumps to his defense, reminding them Ken was the one who falsely accused Kanai. Erika snaps back, arguing that Hayato's trick was bound to cause confusion. The pressure mounts as another girl demands Hayato apologize for the outcome. Hayato looks directly at Sei, asking if she plans to vote him out. She screams back that of course she will, blaming him for the confusion. Now Hiko's inner monologue cheers her on, his plan to eliminate Hayato falling into place. Hayato then turns to Ken, asking if he'll be voting against him as well. Ken agrees, claiming it's the least he can do to atone for Kanai. Now Hiko panics, realizing that makes 2 votes against Hayato. Hayato then turns his gaze to the red-haired girl, Erika. She explodes, screaming that she's definitely voting for him. Hayato's mind races, wondering if Ken is actually a poisoner. Ken erupts in fury, calling his unspoken accusation nonsense. Erika places a hand on her chest, agreeing with the sentiment. She furiously denies knowing anything about who the poisoners are. She declares she won't be fooled again, and demands they exile Hayato. Hayato looks down, a quiet understanding dawning on his face. But Hayato turns to now Hiko with a stunning confession. Now Hiko erupts in disbelief, completely blindsided by the statement. The table is thrown into chaos as Hayato's words sink in. Now Hiko tells Hayato he'll vote with the others to exile him. Ken grins, realizing they now have enough votes to get rid of Hayato. But Hayato holds up a finger, asking for one last word. He stands, facing the entire table with a calm resolve. The hot pot continues to simmer, a silent witness to the tension. With a confident smirk, he reveals his true role, the poison taster. Erika slams her bowl down, screaming that he's just making things up again. Ken erupts in fury, demanding they ignore Hayato's lies. But Hayato calmly explains that as the taster, he was tapped on the shoulder and instructed to point at one person at the table. He reveals that this action allowed him to learn their true role. With a steely gaze, he declares that the person he pointed to was a poisoner. A wave of shock and suspicion washes over the entire table. Now Hiko leans forward, eagerly demanding to know who the traitor is. But Hayato holds his ground, stating he has one condition first. He asks the antidote master to protect him in the next round. Because if they exile the poisoner he names, the other one will surely come for him next. Now Hiko leans in, eagerly telling Hayato to reveal the traitor. With a cold, unwavering gaze, Hayato makes his accusation. The poisoner is Ken. Ken erupts in fury, calling it a lie and demanding they exile Hayato immediately. But Ami quickly intervenes, arguing they can't risk exiling the poison taster. Erika and the others snap back, saying his last-minute claim is far too suspicious. Hayato explains that revealing his role sooner would have made him an instant target. Mayakazuka's manic grin fills the screen, announcing only 1 minute remains. Ken panics, desperately trying to convince the others to vote against Hayato. Naohiko clutches his head, completely lost in the chaos of accusations. But Hayato calmly asks them to remember who first turned on Kanai after his test. It was Ken who first suggested Kanai was a poisoner. With a manic grin, Miyakazuka announces it's time to vote. A wolf-headed figure begins to collect their choices. Mayakazuka asks if they're all prepared for the consequences. In the darkness, a single finger points, sealing a classmate's fate. Miyakazuka declares that the next person to be exiled has been chosen. The Wolfman reveals the final tally. 4 votes for Ken. Ken can only stare in disbelief, his fate sealed by the vote. The device at his waist begins to activate with a low hum. It glows with a terrifying red light, ready to carry out the penalty. In a brutal flash of red, the penalty is carried out. A wolfman looms over Ken as his life is extinguished. His final desperate scream echoes through the room. The wolfman announces that the severance is complete. Hayato can only watch, splattered by the grim aftermath. As the remains are cleaned up, Ami stares in horror. The rest of the table is left in stunned, heavy silence. Naohiko realizes their counters are still at 4, meaning Ken was a poisoner. He wonders how many more have to die before this game is over. Elsewhere, someone watches on a monitor, questioning the lesson. A man in a suit slams his fist down, furious. He declares that he cannot approve of this twisted experiment. He's determined to confront Miyakazuka directly, or whoever else is in charge of this madness. He reaches for the door, ready to put a stop to it. But he's met by a man in a black suit, who reminds him that he too is being watched. In a swift, brutal motion, the man strikes him from behind. The vice principal collapses to the floor, completely neutralized. His attempt to intervene ends in silent defeat. The man in the suit grins, holding a rope with sinister intent. Back at the banquet, the remaining students sit in stunned silence. Naohiko realizes with dawning horror that Hayato was right all along. He pats Hayato on the shoulder, a gesture of newfound trust. He congratulates our boy, relieved that he made the right choice. But Hayato grabs his hand, his expression cold and serious. He announces that his role as the taster isn't over yet, and his next target is Erika. The declaration hangs in the air, putting the entire table on edge. Erika panics, knowing that if he checks her, her secret will be exposed. Erika's inner thoughts reveal a dark truth. She is a poisoner. She clenches her fists, wondering why Hayato would so openly announce he was targeting her, acting as a decoy for the antidote master. She questions his blind trust in a stranger's protection. Meanwhile, Ami smiles, happy this will finally prove her innocence. The rest of the table watches, their trust now hanging on Hayato's gamble. Erika's mind races, knowing a poisoner's goal is to thin the herd. She decides the next target can't be Hayato, who is likely protected. Mayakazuka announces the start of the second poisoning phase, and the purple-haired girl, the other poisoner, realizes Hayato's true gambit. She realizes that if she kills Ami, she'll be playing right into Hayato's hands. She even begins to question if the poison taster role is real. Ami points forward, her face a mask of desperate accusation. Mayakazuka then instructs those with special roles to make their move. He watches with a twisted grin as the choices are made in the dark. His eyes gleam with pure, unadulterated madness. He tells them to enjoy their meal, as the victim will soon be revealed. With no other choice, they begin to eat from their bowls. The boy with glasses takes a bite, his fate hanging in the balance. But it's Naohiko who suddenly chokes, the deadly poison taking effect. He collapses, the penalty carried out in a brutal flash. Mayakazuka announces the next banquet phase has begun. Sei is stunned, wondering if Naohiko was the antidote master. She turns to Hayato, demanding the results of his poison tasting. But Ami argues his poison taster role was never mentioned. Hayato calmly declares that he checked Erika, and she's a poisoner. Erika erupts, accusing Hayato of trying to get her exiled next. Sei is thrown into confusion, wondering if Hayato is the traitor. But Ami points out the flaw in that logic. Why exile his own partner? Erika claims he sacrificed Ken just to throw them off his trail. Ami points out the massive hole in Erika's story. Sei panics, completely lost in the web of lies. Erika turns to Naohiko's remains, trying to sway the others, by reminding them of Hayato's supposed deception. She then makes a bold claim. She's the antidote master. But Hayato calmly cuts her off, saying that's the 4th time. Erika is stunned, completely thrown by his statement. He explains that if you stretch a lie too far, it breaks. The accusation hits her hard, her confident act crumbling. As the final minute ticks down, the others are left completely baffled. Hayato calmly explains that she's lied 4 times in total. He notes that it's probably an unconscious habit. a nervous tic she has whenever she lies. She grabs her collar. The accusation hits home, and Erica realizes she's been caught. He explains he noticed it during the very first test he proposed. Erica furiously demands to know why he didn't just exile her then. He let her continue, using her as bait to find the other poisoner. And thanks to her actions, he confirmed Ken was the second traitor. But Sei makes a wild accusation, claiming Hayato is the real enemy. Hayato ignores her, turning to Ami with a single critical question. Ami explains she was about to reveal her role as the antidote master, but she feared no one would believe her, and it would put Erica in danger. Sei is left completely baffled by this convoluted logic. She declares her own innocence and asks if Hayato's role was real. Hayato calmly explains his reasoning to her. He admits the poison taster role was a complete fabrication. Sei can only stare, stunned by the sheer audacity of his bluff. Erica erupts in a final desperate rage, claiming she's the real antidote master. But Hayato calmly declares that Ami is the one with the power to save them, because Erica is grabbing her collar again, the telltale sign of a lie. The final grains of sand fall, sealing the poisoner's fate. Hayato thanks Ami for her trust, admitting he couldn't have survived without her. The vote is tallied, and with Erica exposed, her time is officially up. The penalty is carried out in a brutal, unforgiving flash. Their counters drop to 2, meaning one poisoner still remains among them. The wolf-headed figures watch on, their grim work now complete. Elsewhere, the captured vice principal watches the game unfold on a monitor. He's been bound and silenced, unable to intervene. But even tied up, his resolve to stop this madness remains unbroken. Just then, a pair of footsteps approaches his makeshift prison. The door to his prison creaks open. An older man enters, pleased with the project's progress. He tells the vice principal to stop resisting the government's will. His smile turns sinister, asking why he'd ever refuse. But the vice principal screams back, refusing to abandon his students. The man claims this is just teaching them social adaptability. He struggles against his bonds, screaming that their future is being destroyed. The man offers him a bigger salary, a bribe from the government. But the vice principal refuses to trade lives for a paycheck. He's dismissed as just another man playing the role of a saint. The man scoffs, saying he's just a salaried employee following orders. He leans in, his expression turning cold and threatening. He grabs the vice principal, warning him not to be naive. But the vice principal responds with a defiant act of disrespect. The man can only stare back, completely stunned by the gesture. The vice principal pleads with him to help end this madness. But his plea is met with a brutal, dismissive shove. He's told his beliefs have blinded him to the reality of the situation. He's ordered to just watch the student's growth from his prison. And when it's all over, he'll be fired for his insubordination. But the vice principal can only glare back with pure defiance. The older man turns to leave, making a chilling remark about the next class: physical education. Elsewhere, another teacher realizes the horrifying implication of that statement. In a desperate act, the vice principal slams his head against the glass. He falls back, cursing his own powerlessness. But with a shard of broken glass, he begins to saw at his bonds. He remembers reading the manual, recalling a set of conditions that could put a stop to this entire twisted experiment. With his hands finally free, a new resolve hardens his expression. He runs, the desperate cries of the fallen students echoing in his mind. He recalls a rule that could suspend the entire experiment. Inside a storage closet, he finds exactly what he needs. He begins to pour a flammable liquid across the floor. But a voice from behind notes his lack of support for the project. The vice principal turns, his eyes wide with shock. He throws the canister, screaming about the lack of educational value. The liquid continues to pool on the storeroom floor. The newcomer steps into the puddle, saying, "Education needs new steps." It's Miyakazuka, who claims the teachers have underestimated social bonds. The vice principal can only demand to know what he means. Miyakazuka explains how people are unable to sever harmful relationships, and how they fail to maintain the ones that could actually help them. He claims these social failings have a greater impact than any other quality, and that collecting data on these skills is their most urgent task. The vice principal screams back that none of this justifies their actions, but Miyakazuka just explains that friendship is the perfect relationship to sample. The vice principal is haunted by the fallen, demanding to know what about their sacrifices. Miyakazuka calmly states that those who can't control their social standing here will be discarded in the real world just as quickly. He concludes that if they can't flourish, they should be content to die as data. A truly inspiring educational philosophy. The vice principal decides that talking is pointless. He reaches for a lighter, his final desperate gambit. But he freezes, realizing he's not alone in the room. Miyakuzuka holds the lighter, having already removed the threat. The vice principal can only grit his teeth in utter defeat. He recalls the rule that could suspend the experiment, and a new, darker plan begins to form in his mind. He asks if his own demise would be enough to stop the game. Miyakuzuka mocks him for reading the manual so thoroughly, and suggests he apply that same passion to the project instead. He explains his twisted philosophy. The weak die as data, while the strong live to provide more. The vice principal tightens his grip on a small shovel, questioning Miyakuzuka's worldview. He declares that such labels are an admission of failure in education. He screams that someone like Miyakuzuka has no right to be an educator, but his desperate attack is cut short by a sudden, brutal response. Miyakuzuka stands on the other side, a smoking gun in his hand. He calmly cites a rule allowing for lethal force against threats to the project. The vice principal collapses to the floor, his final act of defiance ending in tragedy. Miyakuzuka can only stare, his usual manic grin completely gone. And as the grim scene concludes, the school remains a silent prison. Meanwhile, outside the school, another group of students takes a break. One of them complains about the sheer scope of their math curriculum. His friend agrees, saying it's too much time to spend on one subject. He then casually lights up a cigarette offered by another student. With a smug grin, he says it's the only way to get through the day. But another student appears, furious at his casual attitude toward exams. The smoker just dismisses him, warning that stress is the real killer. But his words only seem to fuel the other boy's unhinged rage. He lunges forward, demanding the cigarette be put out immediately. It falls to the ground, a small act of defiance extinguished. He grinds the cigarette into the dirt with his shoe. The smoker turns, shocked to see the unhinged student behind him. The boy glares, complaining about the smell. He orders the smoker, a student also named Miyakuzuka, to move. With a violent shove, he knocks the student aside. He then calmly picks up the broken cigarette from the ground. He holds it up, demanding an explanation from the defiant smoker. His teeth are unnaturally sharp as he begins to speak. He orders the entire group to follow him immediately. But they whisper a plan, certain they can deny everything. The unhinged student desperately pleads his innocence. His destination is the student guidance room. He waits outside, his expression grim. The doorknob turns, sealing his fate. A classmate tells him the others want him to go in next. And with that, the boy quickly makes his escape. Inside, a teacher in a tracksuit waits for him. The teacher's expression hardens with recognition. He reveals that all three of his friends testified against him. The unhinged student can only stare, completely betrayed. He slams his hands down, furiously denying the accusation. But the teacher points out the evidence under his shoe. He grins, telling the boy to just admit his guilt. The student snaps, grabbing the teacher by his collar. He shoves him back, screaming in pure frustration. The teacher stumbles, knocked completely off his feet. The boy's inner monologue declares that such a teacher has no right to educate. The scene cuts back to the white-haired girl, her eyes wide with a sudden memory. She holds her phone to her ear, demanding to know what's happening. And a voice on the other end addresses Commander Miyakuzuka. A woman reports a secure call from headquarters, and Commander Miyakuzuka steps over the fallen vice principal. She enters the high-tech monitoring room. She picks up the receiver to take the call. The voice on the other end asks about the data collection. He questions the severity of the games and the high death toll. But she explodes, insisting the deaths are just a byproduct of good data. HR is going to have a field day with this one. She explains the project's goal is to study social skills. The voice reminds her of the authority she's been given, and warns her not to let the experiment yield only a pile of bodies. She screams that they are definitely accumulating the necessary data, and she's prepared to dedicate her entire life to this project's success. Just then, a subordinate approaches with a request. She suggests arranging medical care for the student's mental state. She even has a list of available PTSD specialists ready to go. But Miyakuzuka explodes, screaming that it would ruin the data's purity. She scoffs at the very idea of considering their well-being, arguing that data from a soft environment is useless in the real world. She then downs a bottle of pills, a truly stable way to make a point. With a manic glare, she declares she'll do whatever it takes. She walks with a renewed, unhinged purpose. Back in the home economics room, the game has concluded. Sora looks around, wondering how many of them are left. A classmate approaches, surprised he survived without Hayato. But a girl at his table reveals Sora was their antidote master. At another table, the boy with glasses celebrates his own group's victory. The tough-looking student scoffs, calling the guests carefree. A new announcement declares the next class will be team-based. He looks down at a bowl, realizing this nightmare is far from over. The survivors are then instructed to head to the gymnasium. The survivors gather at the gym entrance, wondering what fresh hell awaits them now. On the court, Miyakozuka casually dribbles a basketball. He looks up with a predatory grin, and with a flick of his wrists, he takes a shot. The ball sinks perfectly as he asks if they like the sport. He then announces the next game, a twisted version called 3 Dead 3. It's a team-based physical education challenge. With a manic smile, he prepares to explain the rules. He then calls forward 2 figures in full fencing gear to assist. He explains it's a game between 3 teams, all aiming for the same goal. He lays out the scoring system: 2 points from the orange zone, 3 from the green. The basic rules of basketball still apply, like no double dribbling and no traveling, which results in a turnover. Malicious fouls like grabbing or shoving will grant the other team free throws. The first team to score 2 points wins the match, but of course there's a deadly twist. He explains that if a player misses a shot and their team fails to get the rebound, that player dies. The students realize this isn't just basketball, it's another execution. A student points out that it would be safer to just stay on the bench, but Miyakozuka explains that in this game, no one is truly safe. When the opposing team scores 7 points, a substitute is eliminated. Sora screams that the rule is completely unreasonable, like taking hostages, and if the score reaches 22, all substitutes will be erased. The boy with glasses can only grit his teeth in frustration. He realizes that if a team loses this game, he'll have to watch even more of his classmates die. Miyakozuka adds another rule. A 3-point shot can force a player swap. He gives them 5 minutes to prepare, sending the substitutes to their seats. The students form their teams, a grim understanding on their faces. Hayato holds the ball, knowing their skills now decide who lives and who dies. He turns to Brandon, asking if he has any experience on the court. Brandon smirks, saying he knows the rules well enough to survive. He then tosses the ball to Sora, questioning his abilities. Sora admits he quit the sport years ago due to his height. The team decides he's better off playing than sitting on the bench. But during practice, someone's foot lands hard on another's. A blonde girl easily steals the ball, leaving Sora in the dust. She then offers some surprisingly helpful advice on his dribbling. She sinks a perfect shot, telling him to protect the ball better. The others can only watch in awe as the ball goes through the hoop. Sora asks about her experience, and she explains she quit to care for her brothers. Another girl listens as Ami downplays her skills, saying she only practiced in class. The question then turns to 2 other members of their team. One of them admits this is her first time even holding a basketball. The other agrees, finding it much harder than it looks. Brandon then calls out Hayato, noting he's clearly a beginner too. Just then, the scoreboard lights up, revealing their first opponent. Hayato's eyes narrow as he tells them to look closer. On the opposing team, a blue-haired boy easily dribbles past his defenders. He sinks a perfect shot without even breaking a sweat. Brandon and the boy with glasses can only stare, stunned by his incredible skill. The player just wipes his brow, looking completely unfazed. Just then, a hand is placed on his shoulder. A student with pink-streaked hair asks him to join his team on the court. He even suggests they could date if they survive. Another student notes that their opponent's team is mostly girls. The realization sends a wave of shock through the group. A girl named Amai is identified as their opponent, but the focus is on her skilled male teammate. A girl notes the intense aura of his female teammates. It's revealed he's a popular idol and these are his fans. Their devotion is described as disturbingly intense. A rivalry seems to be brewing between the 2 teams. She explains they're all predators and Amai is their target. The scoreboard buzzes, signaling the start of the match. A strange, suited figure calls the players to the court. The pink-streaked boy identifies himself and the blue-haired girl as players. He explains they're using rock, paper, scissors to pick their third. Hayato's team realizes this game will be anything but simple. The girl with pink-streaked hair steps forward, declaring she wants to play. Brandon agrees, confident his strength will make up for his lack of skill. But a girl with purple hair immediately shoots down the idea of Sora joining. Brandon explains that this isn't a normal game. Their opponents look ready to kill. The idol and his devoted fans stare back with cold, predatory eyes. Ami turns to Hayato, asking for his strategic help once again. He admits he has no experience, but agrees to give it his all. Just then, the white-haired girl chimes in with one final, twisted rule. The counters will now track the points each player has scored. And if all players on the court have the same score, the next point is multiplied by 5. A suited figure announces a game of rock, paper, scissors to decide who starts. With a simple hand gesture, the deadly match officially begins. The boy with glasses holds the ball, his mind racing to find a way to minimize casualties. But the skilled blue-haired player easily steals it from him. He takes a shot from a distance, his form perfect. The ball sinks through the net, a flawless 2-pointer. The idol praises his teammate, eager to end the game quickly. The scoreboard updates, putting Hayato's team at an immediate disadvantage. The boy with glasses tries to strategize, but his teammates are confused by his caution. The idol just waves him off, completely unconcerned with the stakes. The idol's team leader insists she has a duty to protect her girls. A suited figure announces a turnover, giving Hayato's team possession, but Brandon dismisses Hayato's strategy, eager to crush their opponents. And with that, the deadly game resumes. Brandon takes the ball, dribbling low and fast. He makes a quick pass to an open teammate, but the skilled blue-haired player intercepts it with lightning speed. The boy with glasses moves to defend, calling for backup, but his opponent fakes him out, leaving him completely stunned. The blue-haired player drives past him, heading straight for the basket. The boy with glasses realizes the skill gap is just too wide. He calls out to his teammates, announcing he's taking the shot. He leaps into the air, but a blonde defender rises to meet him. She grits her teeth, determined to make the block. But he holds the ball, a calm focus in his eyes. And with a flick of his wrist, the ball sinks through the net. The idol celebrates with his teammate, praising the perfect shot. He thanks the skilled player, Mihane, for saving him from a miss. But another one of his fans glares, possessively telling her to back off. On the bench, the substitutes panic as the score climbs to 4-0. Brandon suggests a more direct approach to stopping Mihane. On the other side, a teammate tries to congratulate Mihane, but her friendly gesture is met with a harsh rejection. Mihane explodes, screaming that she's risking her life with every shot. The other girl, Kasumi, nervously tells her not to carry the burden alone. The idol watches the tension, deciding he needs to play peacemaker. He steps between them, calling for unity and support. He then takes charge, telling them to follow his lead. But Mihane just clenches her fist, unimpressed by his arrogance. The game resumes, and the boy with glasses desperately looks for an opening to pass to Ami. But Mihane's defense is airtight, making a pass impossible. The boy with glasses calls out to Ami, trying to force an opening. He dribbles forward, but the idol and Mihane have her completely locked down. Mihane just smirks, calling his attempt amateurish. She easily intercepts the pass, mocking him for announcing his play. The boy with glasses can only watch as the ball is stolen. Mihane dives for the loose ball, determined to secure it. But Brandon moves to intercept, a wall of pure muscle. He roars, confident his raw power will overwhelm her. The two of them collide, sending the ball flying across the court. The ball flies into the air, catching Hayato completely by surprise. But Ami dives for the loose ball, determined to regain possession. She secures it, her eyes locked on the basket ahead. She drives down the court as her opponents scream at Kasumi to stop her. Ami faces off against the defender, ready to make her move. Kasumi plants her foot, preparing to block the advance. But Ami easily dribbles past her, leaving the defender in the dust. From the sidelines, the idol's fans scream at Kasumi for her failure. The harsh words hit their mark, and she stands frozen in shame. She grits her teeth, the weight of their judgment crushing her spirit. But as Ami drives past, Kasumi's foot shoots out to trip her. She follows up with a brutal shove from behind. Ami hits the court hard, stunned by the blatant attack. The referee's whistle blows, calling the foul and awarding a free throw. The boy with glasses helps her up, but she's determined to make the shot. On the sidelines, Kasumi's own teammates scream at her for her mistake. Even Mihan confronts her, questioning her loyalty to the team. But Kasumi explodes, screaming that she was just following their orders. The ball sits on the line, a single chance to turn the tide. Ami steps up, ready to take the most important shot of her life. Ami knows this single shot could change the entire flow of the game. Her teammates understand they have to get the rebound if she misses. The opposing team waits under the basket, ready to block them. Mihane smirks, realizing that if they prevent the rebound, Ami dies. With a deep breath, Ami focuses on the hoop. She pushes the ball forward with perfect form. The ball sails through the air, a silent prayer for a point. Her teammates can only watch, their faces frozen in suspense. But the ball hits the rim, bouncing away from the net. Both teams lunge for the rebound, a desperate scramble for survival. Ami's face is a mask of pure, unadulterated terror. As Mihane rushes forward to secure the rebound, the boy with glasses sprints to intercept her. He knows if she gets the ball, Ami's life is over. He leaps into the air with everything he has, managing to grab the ball just in time. He's immediately swarmed by the opposing team, but he makes a desperate pass from the ground. Much to the idol's complete and utter fury, the ball lands safely in Ami's hands for another shot. The idol watches as Mihane closes in on Ami with deadly intent. The boy with glasses weighs his options, knowing a shot is a life-or-death gamble. He tries to make a pass, but the idol's hand flashes out, and he easily steals the ball, leaving his opponent stunned. Mihane screams at Kasumi to get into position under the basket. but Kasumi snaps back, reminding her she was ordered to stay put. The idol takes in the court, seeing Mihani struggling against the other team. The boy with glasses panics, too terrified of the consequences to take a shot. But Mihani gets the ball, moving with a sudden burst of speed. She drives past the defenders heading straight for the hoop. But she knows she has to take the shot, even with Brandon in her way. Under the basket, her teammates wait for a potential rebound. The ball hits the rim, bouncing high into the air. Kasumi watches it fall, her expression unreadable. The idol is certain he can secure the rebound, but Kasumi reaches up, letting the ball slip right through her fingers. It hits the court floor with a heavy thud. She offers a chilling, sarcastic apology for dropping it. Mihani can only stare in horror, realizing she's been betrayed, and the referee's red card confirms the penalty, sealing her fate. Two suited figures appear, ready to deliver the penalty to Mihane. They drag her away as her teammates can only watch in horror. She screams in pure terror, her final moments filled with rage, and in a brutal flash of pink light, her existence is erased. The idol furiously confronts Kasumi, demanding to know why she betrayed her teammate. From the sidelines, the other students watch the opposing team's meltdown. Sora can't believe someone would sacrifice their own teammate like that. Mayakozuka cheerfully announces it's time to bring in a substitute player. The idol immediately turns to another girl, eager to have her on the court. He asks her to go out with him if they survive. Brandon points out that their new opponent doesn't look very athletic. The idol's fans gossip, accusing the new girl of using her skilled brother to get close to him. The girl, Chihaya, stands before them looking unassuming, but she declares she's a better player than any of them, her gaze intense. Brandon and the boy with glasses are furious, wondering why she wasn't put in from the start. Chihaya ties up her hair, claiming she could beat them 1-on-3. The pink-streaked girl glares, annoyed by the arrogance of skilled players. Ami encourages Hayato, telling him to shoot with confidence when he gets an opening. She promises to get the rebound if he misses. Hayato explains he's being heavily guarded, but she insists he has to take the shot to score. The game resumes, and Hayato tries to drive down the court. But Chihaya's hand flashes out, slapping the ball away. She steals it with ease, leaving Hayato completely stunned. But suddenly, the ball begins to transform in her hand. Chihaya can only stare in utter shock at the bizarre sight. Hayato watches as the strange, pulsating ball hits the floor. It's now covered in a strange, slimy substance. The white-haired girl reveals the horrifying truth. The ball is alive. Because of course it is. She explains it reacts to poor communication and teamwork. And right now, it's crying over the betrayal that just cost Mihani her life. A girl with red-streaked hair recoils, disgusted by the living ball. But Hayato's eyes narrow with a sudden steely focus. He takes a long shot from across the court, ignoring the strange ball. The ball sails through the air as his opponents watch in disbelief, and it sinks perfectly through the net, a flawless shot. His teammates erupt in cheers, a sudden surge of hope filling the court. Sora and the purple-haired girl share a celebratory hug. Before quickly pulling away, completely flustered, Ami rushes over to congratulate Hayato on the incredible play. Brandon points to the scoreboard, realizing a three-pointer could change everything. The girl with glasses complains about the slimy ball, but the idol reminds her that Hayato just scored. He leans in, warning her that her performance reflects on him, and she nervously agrees. The game resumes, and the idol takes possession, driving down the court. He goes for a shot, confident he can make it from this distance, but the slimy ball slips right through his fingers. Chihaya catches the loose ball, sarcastically thanking him for the pass. She easily dribbles past the boy with glasses, leaving him in the dust. She leaps into the air, her form perfect for a shot. The ball sinks through the net, tying up the score. The idol praises Chihaya for the incredible play, and she blushes at the attention. A girl on Hayato's team complains that she's exhausted, while the pink-streaked girl erupts in a furious tirade. She points an accusing finger at Ami, who holds the ball. Ami struggles with the slimy ball, unable to dribble properly. She glances at the scoreboard, vowing to stop the next point. With renewed determination, she drives down the court, but an opponent with red-streaked hair moves to intercept. She reaches out, trying to steal the ball from Ami, but her foot slips on the slimy trail left by the ball. She hits the court floor hard, her attempt completely foiled. Ami takes advantage of the opening, the slimy ball leaving a trail behind her. She leaps into the air, going for an uncontested shot. Her teammates on the bench are stunned to see the basket is completely unguarded, but Kasumi sprints back, determined to stop the easy point. She dives forward with a desperate, outstretched hand and tackles Ami from behind in a brutal, illegal foul. The ball bounces away, landing on the court floor. Kasumi scrambles on the ground, demanding a pass from her teammate. But Chihaya can only watch, stunned by the blatant betrayal. Ami refuses to give up, reaching for the ball with a defiant glare. The red-streaked girl dives for the ball, her fear of death overshadowed by her will to win. She takes a desperate shot from the ground, screaming that she refuses to lose. The ball sinks perfectly through the net, a seemingly impossible point. On the bench, Sora and the others can't believe their eyes. But a suited figure raises a hand, the red background signaling a problem. The referee calls the foul on Kasumi, invalidating the shot and awarding a free throw instead. So close, yet so far. Brandon encourages Ami, who now holds the ball for the free throw. She grips the slimy ball, her gaze locked on the basket. The weight of their survival rests on this single crucial shot. She plants her feet, preparing to seal their fate. With perfect form, she releases the ball. It hits the rim, a heart-stopping moment of uncertainty. The ball bounces high into the air and drops perfectly through the net. Ami can only smile, a wave of relief washing over her. Her teammates erupt in cheers, celebrating the crucial point. The scoreboard updates, and suddenly, a comeback seems possible. But on the other side of the court, the mood is far less cheerful. The girl with glasses furiously berates Kasumi for her poor performance. But Kasumi snaps back, their team's internal conflict now boiling over. The red-streaked girl mocks Kasumi's clumsy play. The boy with glasses explains a new risky strategy. Brandon scoffs, knowing it's easier said than done. First, they have to steal the ball from their opponent. Brandon moves to defend, his massive frame blocking the basket. But she passes the ball right between his legs, a stunning display of skill. He turns in shock as Chihaya catches the perfect pass. Brandon's face contorts with pure, unadulterated rage. Chihaya leaps into the air, preparing to take the shot. But it's a pass, and the idol catches it, completely confused. Brandon is left completely stunned by the unexpected pass. But Kasumi intercepts it, convinced she can make the shot. She grips the ball, her focus absolute. But a teammate notices something is terribly wrong. The ball is suddenly glowing hot in Kasumi's hands. She takes the shot anyway, trusting her team to get the rebound. But it hits the rim and bounces away from the net. The idol can only watch as the opportunity is lost. The strange, glowing ball hits the court floor with a thud, and Kasumi is left frozen in pure, unadulterated terror. The idol just smirks, saying he'd rather not get burned. Mayakuzuka notes the pathetic play that dragged the team down. He even claims the ball itself is furious at the betrayal. A suited figure raises a red card, sealing Kasumi's fate. She's dragged away, screaming at them for not catching the ball. The idol explains he can't risk a shot with a traitor on the team. He then tells her to die quietly if she truly cares about him. Her own teammate declares her an enemy for all the fouls, and coldly states that this is her only real contribution to the team. As her remains are cleared, Mayakuzuka announces a change to the scoreboard. The scoreboard updates, and a new player celebrates her arrival. A girl with pink pigtails joins the idol's team, calling out to her sweetie. She clings to him as he tells her to just focus on getting rebounds. The boy with glasses notes the ball has returned to normal, though it's still warm. He's unsure how long it will last, but Brandon is determined not to fail again. He dribbles down the court, ready to even the score. The ball is no longer slimy, a fact his opponents quickly notice. He drives forward, his raw power on full display. But the girl with red-streaked hair dives in, determined to stop him. She cleanly steals the ball, leaving Brandon completely stunned. Brandon lets out a furious roar, his rage directed at the girl who just outplayed him. She can only cower on the floor, completely terrified by his outburst. Brandon smirks, reaching down to take the ball back with ease. But another hand flashes in, challenging him for possession. It's the girl with pink pigtails, who snatches the ball with a smug grin. She dribbles right past Brandon, leaving him stunned by her speed. And with a powerful leap, she goes for a shot of her own. The idol and the boy with glasses can only watch as the ball sails toward the hoop. It arcs perfectly through the air, heading straight for the net, and sinks without touching the rim, another flawless point for their team. The girl with pink pigtails gloats, asking the idol if he saw her graceful shot. A grim announcement confirms their opponents have reached 7 points, and a substitute from Hayato's team is brutally eliminated for it. The remaining players on the bench can only watch in horror. The idol congratulates his new teammate, Emma, for the successful play. The white-haired girl then reveals a new rule. A three-pointer allows for a player swap. The idol immediately decides to take Ami off the court. He then scans the remaining substitutes, looking for the weakest link. His finger lands on Sora, ordering him to take Ami's place. The purple-haired girl begs him to be careful, but Sora tries to reassure her with a weak smile. Brandon points out that Sora is no substitute for Ami's skill, but Hayato reveals a new plan, explaining that if they each score once, the next point will be multiplied by 5. their only shot at a comeback. He tells them to play it safe with no reckless moves. The game resumes, and Brandon charges down the court with the ball. He barrels right into Emma with a brutal, aggressive shove. The force of the impact sends her crashing hard to the floor. As he continues his advance, she screams for the referee to call a foul. Elsewhere, Hayato is also on the ground after a rough collision, but Brandon ignores the chaos, vowing to crush them all. He leaps into the air ready to score, and slams the ball through the hoop with a triumphant roar. His teammates celebrate the incredible display of power, but Sora knows they're still behind, vowing to score for his friend. The game resumes, with Brandon facing off against a determined opponent. She seethes with anger, preparing her next move. She scans the court, looking for a way past the defense. She fakes a shot, sending Brandon flying into the air. But it's a pass, and Hayato snatches it from the air. He loses his balance and falls as a teammate calls for the loose ball. The ball flies through the air, a desperate pass from Hayato, and Sora catches it, declaring he's open for a shot. He leaps into the air, his eyes on the prize. But Emma lunges forward with a furious expression. She slams into him, a brutal and illegal block. The whistle blows as they both hit the court floor. She gets up complaining about the minor foul call. Ami rushes over to check on Sora, who's still on the ground. She picks up the ball, ready to take the free throw. The ball bounces once, a moment of calm before the storm. Sora rushes over, asking Ami what's wrong. She admits that the last foul left her seriously injured. She'll try to hide it, but the others have to carry the team. Hayato understands as the referee calls them back to the court. Sora steps up to the free throw line in her place. He vows to make this shot for everyone, especially for Shiho. With perfect form, he releases the ball. It sails through the air, a silent prayer for a point, and sinks perfectly through the net without touching the rim. Sora erupts in a cheer, celebrating the crucial point. On the bench, his teammates celebrate the crucial point. But for one of the opposing substitutes, the celebration means her time is up. The penalty is carried out in a brutal, unforgiving flash. The idol's remaining teammates can only watch in frustration. He furiously confronts Emma, realizing the gravity of the situation. Because now, with all three players having scored, their next point is multiplied by 5. The purple-haired girl celebrates with Sora, a brief moment of victory. Hayato knows they have to score now before their opponents can do the same. Sora declares that a single three-pointer is all they need to win this. Brandon stands his ground, vowing not to let them or the ball get past him. The idol's teammate dives low, trying to steal the ball, but Brandon's face contorts with rage at the challenge. The girl with glasses grins, having successfully snatched it away. Brandon glares down, his pride completely shattered. He charges forward, ignoring his teammate's plea to calm down. The ball flies through the air, but the idol misses the pass. He flinches back, covering his face as it sails past him. The ball hangs in the air, glowing with a strange energy. On the bench, his teammates panic, realizing the ball is acting up again. It hits the court floor, glowing with an unnatural, ominous light. The idol stares at the scoreboard, completely stunned by the sudden turn of events. He strikes a pose, declaring that even the goddess of fortune has fallen for him. On the bench, Hayato's teammates erupt in fury, realizing the horrifying truth, that the 5-point multiplier now applies to the idol's team as well. And since it was a three-pointer, they get to force a substitution. The girl with red-streaked hair scans the bench, deciding who to bring in. Her gaze falls on the 3 remaining substitutes, all with 0 points. The blonde girl on the bench looks on with a nervous, annoyed expression. But the red-streaked girl just grins, a sinister plan forming in her mind. She makes her choice, and the blonde girl is thrown onto the court. The red-streaked girl realizes the new substitute has an injured elbow, and a suited figure orders Ami back onto the court. Her teammates can only watch, their faces filled with concern. Sora clenches his fist, furious at their impossible situation. He warns Hayato not to push himself as he takes the ball. Hayato makes a gentle pass to his injured teammate. Ami catches it, her expression grim and determined. He asks if she can still manage a few light passes. She grips the ball, ready to try despite the pain. But her injured arm gives out, and she fumbles the pass. Hayato grits his teeth, managing to recover the fumbled ball. But Ami clutches her arm, admitting she's too injured to be of any use. A suited figure barks at them to resume the game, ignoring her condition. With a quiet apology, she takes herself out of the play, leaving them a man down. The opposing team grins, ready to take advantage of the 3-on-2 situation. 2 of them immediately swarm Hayato with a taunting, aggressive defense. He struggles to protect the ball as they close in from all sides. The idol watches from afar, hoping for a 3-pointer to end it all. Hayato leaps for a shot as Brandon moves in for the rebound. But before he can release the ball, Emma slams into him from the side. Hayato knows he can't hold the ball for long against two defenders. He plants his feet, preparing for a desperate all-or-nothing play. With a determined cry, he realizes it's do or die. He leaps into the air, faking a shot that catches his opponents off guard. But instead of shooting, he makes a quick, unexpected pass. Sora catches it as Hayato yells for him to get the ball to Ami. He hesitates, confused by the order to pass to their injured teammate. But across the court, Ami stands ready, glowing with a new resolve. Her eyes are filled with a fire that stuns everyone watching. She dives for the ball, proving she's not out of this fight just yet. The opposing team charges forward with everything they have, but Ami holds the ball, a silent apology on her lips. She makes a quiet vow to make this shot count. She leaps into the air, releasing the ball over the defender's desperate block. The ball sails through the air, a silent prayer for victory. It arcs perfectly toward the hoop. The entire court can only watch, their fates hanging in the balance. In a brilliant flash of light, it drops toward the net and sinks perfectly through the hoop, a flawless shot. The scoreboard updates, and the 5-point multiplier puts them in the lead. A suited figure raises his hand, declaring the game is officially over. Ami smiles in relief as their victory is announced. The entire team erupts in a massive celebration on the court. Sora asks if her injury was a lie, and she calmly admits it was. He's completely stunned, wondering how Hayato knew she was faking. Hayato explains he learned the trick from watching Erika's nervous tics. Ami admits it was the only way to get back into the game, a desperate gamble she took to help her teammates survive. But just as they celebrate, a strange red energy fills the air. The students look up in shock, wondering what that sound was. A suited figure walks across the court floor. He kneels before Mayakazuka, reporting that the next game is ready. She grins, saying she wants to inspect the device herself. He opens a briefcase to reveal a bomb with a digital timer. Mayakazuka turns to the students with a manic, unhinged expression. She holds up a golden scale, asking if they understand its purpose. Brandon and Sora erupt in fury, demanding to know what this new game is. She explains with a twisted smile that a scale reveals what is heavier. The boy with glasses can only ask what she means by that. She explains that this project values the unseen over the seen. She explains that this time they'll be weighing invisible things. A student asks if she means they'll be weighing the air. But with a manic grin, she clarifies they'll be weighing human lives. The students will be divided into two groups, those who measure, the scale, and those who are measured, the weights. She then leads them toward a brightly lit doorway at the end of the court. Sora's spirit is completely broken, wondering if they have to continue. But the boy with glasses puts a reassuring hand on his shoulder. He reminds Sora that they somehow managed to survive the last game, and if they work together, they can survive this one too. Sora's face lights up, agreeing with Hayato's resolve. Mayakazuka leads them into a room with several large glass cylinders. The strange pods stand ominously, waiting for their occupants. The girl with pink-streaked hair asks what the water tanks are for. Mayakazuka taps the glass, explaining it's reinforced to withstand a tank shell. Sora demands to know why such extreme measures are necessary. She explains it's to keep the valuable safe from the worthless. The game will proceed with 3 students at a time. 2 will be assigned a color and enter the tanks as code holders. The third becomes the code cutter, forced to sever one of the lines. Sora asks with dawning horror what happens when a code is cut. She explains there's a stick of dynamite under each of the scales. In other words, the chosen code holder will be completely erased. The girl with pink-streaked hair realizes that one of them is guaranteed to die. The white-haired girl adds that only the code holders know their own color. They can't speak to each other, but they can talk to the cutter. They can either give up their life or try to deceive their way to survival. The cutter must listen to them both and then decide who to let live. With a manic grin, she reveals who this round's cutter will be. She hands the tool to the pink-streaked girl, telling her it's her turn to choose. Makazuka makes a grand, unhinged announcement. Revealing the 2 students to be weighed are Sora and Shiho. The 2 of them grip each other's hands tightly. Sora can only ask why this is happening to them. Mayakazuka grins, explaining the scale has special features, perfectly suited for this twisted friendship experiment. They're ordered to enter the tanks without another word. The 2 share a final, desperate look. Sora steps forward, his resolve hardening. He's sealed inside the glass pod, his fate now in another's hands. The pink-streaked girl is ordered to enter the code box. She must listen carefully as Sora and Shiho plead their cases. Their faces appear on monitors, their lives now on display. The rest of the class can only watch the horrifying game unfold. Inside their pods, Sora and Shiho learn their assigned colors. A 3-minute timer begins, a countdown to a brutal choice, and if she fails to decide, she'll be eliminated along with them. Mayakazuka gleefully announces the start of the bomb timer. The girl stares at the clock, realizing she has to choose who survives. But a memory of their friendship makes the decision impossible. Sora's voice comes through first, asking if she can hear him. With a strange intensity, he tells her to cut the red wire. The girl is completely stunned by his immediate plea. She looks to the side, trying to process the information. But then her attention is drawn to the other pod. Shiho pleads with her, also telling her to cut the red wire. The cutter is left completely frozen by the impossible situation. The other students realize that both of them are claiming to be red. Brandon just smirks, explaining the grim reality of the game. One of them is lying, and is trying to get the other one eliminated. The pink-streaked girl erupts, insisting that can't be right. She knows that with those two, something is terribly wrong. But Brandon just smirks, saying that in the end, everyone saves themselves. Inside their pods, Sora and Shiho both scream for Ami to cut the red wire. Ami realizes that one of them must be blue, and is lying to survive. She's haunted by a memory of them laughing, the timer now at 1 minute. Hayato can only watch as Ami is completely overwhelmed by the impossible choice.
Tears stream down her face, the pressure becoming unbearable.
But then her expression hardens with a sudden, steely resolve. And with a steady hand, she moves to cut the glowing blue wire. She doesn't know for sure who's lying, but she knows who's trying to manipulate her into killing the other. The penalty is carried out in a brutal flash of red, and Sora is the one who pays the ultimate price. But as the light consumes him, a faint smile appears. He thanks Ami, glad that Shiho is now safe. The other students can only watch in utter disbelief. Hayato realizes Sora knew Shiho would try to save him, so he forced Ami's hand, ensuring his own demise. The horrifying truth of his sacrifice sends Ami reeling. Ami screams out his name as the timer hits 0. In his final moments, Sora apologizes for the deception. Shiho can only watch in pure, unadulterated terror. He offers a final, silent goodbye through the glass. He asks her to live on for the both of them. With a final thumbs up, he tells them he loves them, and in a brilliant flash, his life is extinguished. Shiho screams his name, her world completely shattered. Hayato watches as the grim remains are washed away. He slams his fists against the glass, overcome with rage. A cold notification announces the pod is clean and ready for the next victim. Shiho stumbles out, completely broken by what she's just witnessed. Ami rushes to her side, catching her as she collapses in grief. But the game shows no mercy, announcing the next two to be weighed. Miyakazuka turns with a manic grin, revealing the next cutter is none other than Hayato himself. He can only stare at the tool, the weight of the decision hitting him. The two new victims are ordered to step into the glass pods. But just before he enters, Tomitaka calls out to Brandon. Brandon turns, completely baffled by the sudden call-out. He offers a strange, confident smile, saying Brandon will be fine. Brandon can only stare back, demanding to know what he means. Tomitaka's expression turns serious as he admits that until now, he's relied on everyone else to survive this nightmare. He tells Brandon to keep fighting and help the others just like before. The former bully can only look down, processing the final request. Hayato watches, his thoughts turning to another fallen classmate, Naohiko. He remembers Naohiko mocking him for being desperate and tossing his precious manga across the classroom floor. The book hits the ground, a memory of past cruelty resurfacing. He remembers Naohiko tripping him, a casual act of cruelty. Another student with pink-streaked hair eagerly joins the torment. He coldly explains to his friends that they're just playing with Hayato. But their fun is cut short as a classroom door slides open. The bully turns to the teacher with a mocking grin, inviting him to join. But the teacher is furious, demanding to know what's happening. Naohiko's friends immediately abandon him, running down the hall. He's left alone with Hayato, his expression turning cold. He calls the situation boring before casually walking away. But Hayato's memory shifts to another thought, that Naohiko saved him too. The white-haired girl grins, announcing the colors are being assigned. Naohiko and the girl with purple-streaked hair learn their fates. Hayato sits in the cutter's chair, a 3-minute timer now counting down his life. With a manic gesture, Miyakazuka officially begins the countdown. Hayato immediately asks Naohiko why he's so willing to sacrifice himself. The boy explains that his school life has always been terrible. He was always an outcast, unable to make friends. But for the first time, he was happy to finally belong. Hayato grits his teeth as Naohiko tells him not to look so worried. He insists this isn't like the werewolf game. There's no need to agonize over the choice. He calmly tells Hayato his coat is red, asking him to cut it without a second thought. But Hayato is horrified, questioning if he truly has to make this choice. He screams that he doesn't want to cut either of them. The pressure mounts as he struggles with the impossible decision. He glances over at the other pod, where Brandon sits in silence. Hayato wonders why the former bully isn't pleading for his life. Just then, Tomitaka's voice comes through, reminding him of the games they survived together. She says his bravery inspired her to finally do something meaningful. Naohiko screams again, begging Hayato to just cut his code and end it. With a heavy heart, Hayato raises the cutter, ready to fulfill Naohiko's wish. But Hayato refuses to blindly follow the request. He realizes this isn't a game of obedience. It's a game about weighing the value of a human life. He sees that Naohiko's logic is just as twisted as Mayakuzuka's, but with only 55 seconds left, he knows a choice must be made. And with a sudden, steely resolve, he decides to choose for himself. He thinks of Tomitaka, a cooperative and surprisingly strong ally, and then of Brandon, a powerful teammate who he can now trust. He weighs their potential, their will to fight, and their future value. With only 32 seconds left, our boy makes his final choice. With a quiet apology to Brandon, he cuts the blue wire. A notification confirms the code has been severed. But it's Naohiko who looks up in utter shock. His pod glows red as the penalty begins to activate. The rest of the class can only watch in disbelief. But Brandon erupts in a manic, triumphant gesture. Naohiko can only scream, completely bewildered by the betrayal. Inside his own pod, Brandon covers his face, revealing a sinister grin, mocking Hayato's naivete. Hayato can only stare, the horrifying truth of the manipulation sinking in. A cold notification announces the measurement is complete. Naohiko erupts in a final desperate scream of betrayal. Hayato realizes the horrifying truth. Naohiko wasn't red. In the other pod, Brandon can't contain his triumphant laughter. He reveals that he was the red code holder all along. Naohiko demands to know how Brandon manipulated Hayato, but Brandon just screams back, denying any secret communication. Naohiko desperately tries to reconnect the severed wire. Hayato is haunted by the memory of Naohiko's misplaced trust. In his final moments, Naohiko's noble sacrifice turns to pure, desperate rage. Brandon smirks, mocking Naohiko's failed sacrifice. And in a brutal flash of red, the penalty is carried out. Tomitaka's hand goes limp, dropping the cutter. The tool clatters to the floor, the choice now irreversible. Brandon steps out of the pod, taking a deep, triumphant breath. Hayato can only stumble back, the weight of his mistake crushing him. He demands to know when Brandon realized it was all a lie. Brandon admits he knew before they even stepped into the pods. He explains that Naohiko's eyes had a strange gleam, a classic tell for a liar. He lights a cigarette, completely unfazed by the life he just manipulated away. He calls Naohiko's noble sacrifice nothing but bad acting. He knew the boy was trying to manipulate Hayato into cutting his code. He grabs Hayato, saying he's too soft to kill someone like that. But his expression turns cold as he reminds Hayato that whatever the reason, he still tried to kill him. As Hayato falls, Brandon declares he now owes him a massive debt. The horrifying realization hits Hayato. He almost saved a monster. Brandon turns his back, leaving Hayato to his guilt. Hayato clenches his fist, the weight of his choice sinking in. Just then, Mayakuzuka appears, asking if the scale worked as intended. Hayato is left reeling, questioning if the scale truly measured anything at all. But Miyakuzuka is suddenly summoned to the monitoring room. With a manic grin, she announces a brief break for the survivors. She stalks down the hallway, clearly annoyed by the interruption. She pulls out her phone, her expression one of pure irritation. She furiously answers, screaming that she's not a student to be summoned by a broadcast. But the voice on the other end explains it was an order from headquarters. With a frustrated sigh, she agrees to head over immediately. She walks past a subordinate, who shrinks back from her intense aura. But Mayakuzuka stops, turning to ask what the woman is holding. She furiously asks why the woman is holding a bowl of food. The subordinate stammers that the student's condition is important. Miyakuzuka's eyes widen with a sudden, unhinged rage. She dismisses the woman, telling her not to pretend she understands. Back in the classroom, the survivors sit in a heavy silence. A memory flashes, a friend sharing a piece of her lunch. It's Mai, a ghost from a time before the games began. And Naohiko, another fallen classmate, sips his drink in peace. The classroom is filled with the quiet hum of a normal school day. A girl with a bright smile offers Hayato a drink, a memory of a kinder world. But the memory is twisted, their faces now hollow and accusing. He's surrounded by the ghosts of the fallen, their silent judgment echoing in his mind. Their unspoken question hangs heavy in the air. Was there no other way? Hayato collapses, overwhelmed by a crushing wave of guilt. He screams that he had no choice, that there was nothing he could do. But a darker thought surfaces. He didn't want to die either. He can only bow his head, repeating his apology to the empty air. A voice cuts through the nightmare, calling out his name. Ami shakes him back to reality, offering a bottle of water. He stares at his hands, the weight of his choices finally sinking in. A voice crackles over the school's intercom system, summoning the remaining students to their next class. They follow Miyakazuka down a dark hallway, their fate uncertain. She turns back with a predatory glare, her own counter a stark 0. But Ami notices something strange. Miyakazuka is wearing the same contacts. Hayato steps forward, a new understanding dawning on him. His eyes suddenly glow with a brilliant blue light. The world around him glitches, revealing a hidden digital layer. Miyakazuka welcomes them to their new classroom, the morgue. An anatomical model glows ominously, a grim preview of what's to come. A new announcement declares the next class will be held in virtual space. Brandon questions why Miyakazuka also has a counter above his head. Elsewhere in a high-tech control room, a subordinate panics, insisting that forcing a student to die must be a flaw in the game's design. The director of the project can only sit in grim silence. A woman pleads with him to make a decision, to stop Miyakazuka's madness. Another agrees, saying that from a humanitarian standpoint, this is unforgivable. They demand that Miyakazuka be stripped of his command immediately. But the director hesitates, worried about what the unhinged man might do if dismissed. He asks what the next class is, and a subordinate reveals its grim title, 2 People in the Morgue. You know, for kids. The director reveals a new plan. Miyakazuka will become a test subject. Miyakazuka erupts in fury, demanding an explanation. A subordinate explains they want to add data from a commander to their samples. Another staff member holds up Hayato's file, calling him the project's optimal solution. But Miyakazuka scoffs, seeing Hayato as nothing but a fragile weakling. The director listens in silence, his decision already made. He challenges Miyakazuka to prove he's the true optimal solution. Until he wins the next game, his command authority is suspended. The director clarifies that this order comes directly from headquarters. The subordinate wishes him luck with a smug, knowing grin. The subordinate addresses the former commander, Miyakazuka. Miyakazuka's eye glows red as he declares he'll be joining the game. And with a manic grin, he reveals his opponent is Hayato. Hayato can only stare, completely caught off guard by the announcement. But Shiho tells him this is his chance to get revenge for Sora. With a new resolve, Hayato steps forward to face his opponent. Brandon sits down, assuming the rest of them are just spectators. But a strange glowing rectangle appears on the floor, leaving them all confused. A new rule is announced. Everyone else will act as supporters. Brandon realizes their role in this game is far from over. A girl wonders aloud who would ever support Miyakazuka. Just then, a bright blue light fills the room, and 3 of the project's staff members step forward to volunteer. Ami recognizes one of them from a brief moment of kindness. They're warned that joining the game means their lives are at risk, but they feel responsible for not stopping their commander's madness. And so, they agree to participate in the deadly game. The 2 opposing teams now stand ready in the morgue. A new rule explains that supporters will be given special cards that are directly linked to the life of their chosen player. The horrifying reality sinks in. The players hold their supporters' lives in their hands. Brandon immediately erupts in fury. He refuses to trust his life to Hayato, who almost got him killed. And Hayato agrees, unable to bear that responsibility again. The memory of his last choice haunts him, a burden he can't carry. Just then, a bright screen flashes to life before them. It reveals the conditions for their freedom from this game. If they meet certain conditions, they can be released. But their freedom depends entirely on Hayato's victory. Miyakazuka's team has their own set of conditions for winning. Ami whispers to Hayato, realizing this might be their only chance to escape. Brandon agrees, wondering if management finally sees how dangerous Miyakazuka is. The purple-haired girl declares they have to beat him and survive together. But Hayato just lets out a quiet, unsettling laugh. He points out that with Miyakazuka as their opponent, they could easily lose. And with a twisted grin, he adds that everyone might die. Ami immediately slaps him hard across the face. She screams, demanding to know if he feels anything for their fallen friends. She grabs him, reminding him they're only alive because others died in their place. And she asks if he's forgotten his sister, who's still waiting for him to come home. The students stand in the morgue, a grim setting for their final class. An announcement declares the next game is about to begin. The force of her words sends Hayato stumbling back. Her reminder of his sister finally breaks through his despair. A memory of a peaceful meal with his sister flashes in his mind. He wants to return to the life he had before Miyakazuka arrived. The commander holds a deck of cards ready to end this and regain control. And Hayato realizes there's only one way to get his life back. He has to defeat the man responsible for all this suffering. The final game will be a battle of trust and doubt. Mayakuzuka explains that each player will draw 1 card per turn. He reveals the deck contains 25 cards in total, with 20 gold coins and 5 special, much deadlier cards. He holds one up, calling them corpse cards. Hayato's eyes widen, realizing the stakes of this final game. After drawing, each player must declare what kind of card they hold. But the rules explicitly state that they are allowed to lie. The opponent must then decide whether to trust or doubt that claim. And based on that choice, points will be awarded. The first scenario is simple. A player draws a gold coin and tells the truth. If the opponent trusts the declaration and guesses correctly, they get 1 point. But if they doubt and are wrong, the point goes to the player who drew the card. The game then moves to the second scenario. A false declaration. If a player lies and their opponent trusts them, the liar gets the point. But if the opponent correctly doubts the lie, they're the one who scores. Hayato realizes this is a game of pure deception, with no room for trust. Mayakuzuka then explains the true purpose of the corpse cards. If a player draws a corpse card, lies that it's a gold coin, and is believed, a morgue drawer begins to slide open with an ominous purple glow, and the opponent who trusted the lie is immediately eliminated from the game. The victim is dragged into the darkness of the morgue drawer, and all of their points are stolen by the one who deceived them. But if the opponent correctly doubts the lie about the corpse card, the liar is the one who gets eliminated, losing everything. There's one final twisted scenario, telling the truth about the corpse card. If the opponent doubts that honest declaration, they're the one who dies. Mayakuzuka explains that the entire game will be decided by these cards. Brandon immediately recognizes the twisted logic from the previous game. The purple-haired girl demands to know how the supporters are involved. They all wait for the final, horrifying piece of the puzzle. Just then, Ami looks up, startled by a strange sound. A hand reaches out, glowing with a strange purple light. The anatomical model steps forward, a new, horrifying piece of the game. Mayakuzuka explains that gripping its hand unlocks a special card, and since there are no sensors, a teammate can activate it for them. But once the hand is gripped, the choice is irreversible. He reveals there are 3 types of cards, 1 for each team's supporters. The first is Double Up, which doubles any points gained that turn. The second is Shield, which protects a player's points from being stolen. And the third is Reversal, a comeback mechanic for the player who's behind. Each player can only use 1 of these special cards per turn, and never the same one twice. The anatomical model holds the deck, a silent instruction for the teams to cooperate. With the rules set, Mayakuzuka announces the final class is about to begin. The game will consist of 10 turns, with each player drawing a card alternately. And of course, showing the drawn card to the opponent is strictly forbidden. The anatomical model turns, ready to decide who will take the first turn. It asks Hayato to call the coin toss, a simple choice with deadly consequences. Hayato nervously calls tails, his fate now sealed by chance. The coin flies into the air as Mayakuzuka grins, eager for the game to start. It lands on tails, and Hayato is chosen to take the first turn. Hayato reaches for the deck, ready to begin the final game. He draws a gold coin, deciding to play it safe for the first round. He knows the odds of a corpse card are low, making a bluff too obvious. He looks his opponent in the eye and declares he's holding a gold coin. Mayakuzuka grins, knowing it's too early for any real mind games. His supporter steps up to a terminal, awaiting the commander's choice. With a predatory smile, Mayakuzuka says he trusts him completely. An empty morgue drawer glows with a faint purple light, and a single point is awarded to Mayakuzuka's team. The commander lets out a sinister laugh, the first move now complete. One of Mayakuzuka's supporters notes his formidable skill as the game's designer. It's now Mayakuzuka's turn, and he's confident that even a corpse card poses no threat. With a manic grin, he declares he's holding a gold coin. Hayato is prompted to either trust or doubt the claim. He weighs his options, realizing that with only 1 point at stake, there's little difference. And so Hayato chooses to trust his opponent's declaration. The morgue drawer remains shut, the choice a safe one. A single point is awarded to Hayato's team. Ami celebrates the correct guess, though Hayato seems a bit confused. With the second turnover, the Double Up card is now available for use. A new rule explains that Double Up can double the score. But if the player fails to score on that turn, the supporter who activated the card will die. Because of course they will. The horrifying stakes are now clear to everyone in the room. A screen lights up, detailing the conditions for this high-risk play. Success means freedom for the supporter, but failure means their immediate elimination. Hayato realizes with dawning horror that Ami's life is now tied to his performance, but Ami looks at him with unwavering trust, telling him to use her life as a tool to win. The weight of that trust settles on Hayato, knowing one wrong move will cost her everything. He can only stare forward, the pressure mounting with every passing second. Ami explains that if they don't use the special cards, the supporters will never be released. A vision of her desperate plea flashes in his mind, begging him to save her from this hell. Hayato's hand clenches into a tight fist. With a new resolve, he knows he has no choice but to win. He reaches for the deck, beginning the third turn. He draws a gold coin, but decides against using the double-up card so early in the game. He looks his opponent in the eye and declares he's holding a gold coin. Myakuzuka grins, deciding to trust Hayato's declaration. A beam of light confirms the correct guess, awarding Myakuzuka another point. With the score now 2-1, it's the commander's turn to draw. Hayato watches as his opponent studies the drawn card. With a deadpan expression, Myakuzuka declares he's holding a gold coin, but his manic grin tells a completely different story. Hayato tries to read him but finds no obvious tells in his behavior. He steps up to the terminal and chooses to trust the commander's word. Myakuzuka's grin widens, a predator watching its prey fall into a trap. Hayato's logic is simple: it's too early for a risky bluff. But as the morgue drawer glows with a bright light, he realizes he's made a catastrophic mistake. The penalty for trusting a lie is carried out in a brutal flash. A spectral figure drags Hayato into the darkness of the morgue drawer. He screams, cursing his catastrophic mistake. Myakuzuka's score jumps to 3, having stolen all of Hayato's points. But our boy is still in the game, his score reset to 0, ready for turn 5. He draws a gold coin, but decides it's time to shake things up. With a steely gaze, he declares he's holding a corpse card. But Myakuzuka sees right through the bluff, choosing to doubt the claim. His score climbs to 4 as he mocks Hayato for his failed gambit. The supporters can only watch in horror as the score gap widens. Myakuzuka prepares for the 6th turn, a taunting grin on his face. With a terrifying grin, he declares he's holding a corpse card. Hayato is completely stunned, the weight of the choice hitting him. He knows that if he trusts the claim and is right, he wins the game. But with 4 corpse cards still in play, the odds are terrifying. He knows he has to take a risk to close the massive score gap. But he realizes this is exactly the kind of trap Myakuzuka would set. He chooses to doubt, and a beam of light confirms his choice was correct. Myakuzuka's bluff fails and Hayato finally scores a point. With the 6th turn over, the shield card is now available to both teams. This new card can protect a player's points from being stolen, but also that if Hayato fails to score, Brandon will be released. He gets in Hayato's face, reminding him to repay the debt from before. Hayato wonders if he can truly take responsibility for another life. He clenches his fist, haunted by his last catastrophic misjudgment. But Myakuzuka just grins, ready for the 7th turn to begin. His supporters announce they're using the special shield card. Myakuzuka lets out a bored sigh, completely unfazed by the risk. He tells Hayato to hurry up and draw, not caring about the outcome. Hayato grabs him, screaming that if he scores, a supporter dies. But Myakuzuka just grins, calling this a free turn for him. Hayato screams, asking if he cares about anyone else. But Myakuzuka just calls supporters disposable pieces. He warns that Hayato's compassion will cost him everything. But Hayato calmly states he won't treat his friends as tools. He then draws his card and declares it's a corpse. Myakuzuka processes the bold, high-stakes claim. A manic grin spreads across his face, thrilled by the gamble. And with absolute confidence, he declares that he doubts him. His supporter can only watch in terror, her life on the line. The morgue drawer begins to glow, ready to claim its victim. The white-haired girl watches as the result of the gamble is revealed. And in a brutal flash, Myakuzuka's supporter is eliminated for his mistake. The girl muses that doubting a corpse card was the obvious, predictable move. Myakuzuka taunts Hayato, saying his bluff cost an innocent life. He calls out our boy's hypocrisy, questioning his supposed value for life. But Hayato grabs the model's hand, activating a special card of his own. With a furious glare, he declares he's using double up to end this. Ami stands firm, her unwavering trust placed entirely in Hayato. The game moves to the 8th turn, with Myakuzuka ready to draw. He holds up his card and with a terrifying grin declares it's a gold coin. Hayato's mind races, calculating the odds. He knows that if it's a corpse card and he doubts, he could win the entire game in a single move. But he remembers that Ami's life is on the line. And with a steady voice, he chooses to trust Myakuzuka. The morgue drawer immediately begins to open. Ami can only watch as her fate is sealed. But a flash of blue light confirms the correct guess. His score doubles, bringing him to 2 points. And Ami's life is spared, her freedom now secured. A small angel delivers another point to Hayato. He looks up with a grateful smile, thanking Ami for her trust. Ami and Shiho celebrate, relieved that they're both safe. With a new resolve, Hayato vows to win this game for everyone. He knows the reversal card is still locked away, which is exactly what Miyakazuka is counting on. The commander grabs the model's hand, activating Double Up. But Hayato makes his own move, choosing to use the shield card. He knows this will protect his points from a corpse card, but it comes with a terrible price. If he scores, Brandon dies. Hayato knows he can't draw a corpse card right now. He draws a gold coin, realizing he can save Brandon by letting Miyakazuka score this turn. But instead, he declares he's holding a corpse card. A bold lie, but one that's statistically plausible. Miyakazuka weighs his options, knowing the shield protects Hayato's points. But if he doubts and is wrong, he'll lose everything. A loss that would also cost his supporter their life. And so, with a manic grin, he chooses to doubt. He calls Hayato a defective person, unable to sacrifice his own allies. Hayato realizes that by lying, he can save both his and Miyakazuka's supporters. Miyakazuka accepts this move, calling Hayato's compassion a fatal flaw. Even Brandon thinks prioritizing an enemy's life is completely insane. With the 9th turn over, the final special card, Reversal, is unlocked. But using it comes with a terrible price. The supporter who activates it dies. The others are stunned by this final cruel twist. They realize that if the card isn't used, Shiho will be left behind. But if it is used, she'll be eliminated. An impossible choice for Hayato. Miyakazuka stands before him, a smug grin on his face. He calls this the penalty for Hayato's weakness, a burden he now has to carry. Shiho screams at Hayato to use the reversal card. She points at Miyakazuka, demanding he kill the demon. But Hayato refuses, saying he can't make that choice. Miyakazuka just grins, calling the idea impossible. Shiho pleads with him, saying, reversal is their only chance. But Hayato can only apologize, his face hidden in shadow. He grits his teeth, unable to sacrifice another friend. She smiles, knowing that's just the kind of person he is. She grabs the model's hand, making him promise one thing: to defeat Miyakazuka and avenge Sora's death. She begs him not to let her sacrifice be in vain. And with that, the reversal card is activated. Miyakazuka calls her a fool for throwing her life away. He then declares his card as a gold coin. Hayato calculates the odds, knowing 4 corpse cards remain. His gaze sharpens, the weight of the choice immense. The pressure is almost too much for him to bear. He's haunted by the memory of Shiho's final plea. Miyakazuka taunts him, asking if he'll waste their sacrifices. But Hayato's resolve hardens, his eyes burning with defiance. Hayato looks on, realizing there's no way to change her mind. She offers a small, knowing smile, her choice already made. He understands that her resolve is now completely unshakable. And so, with a steely gaze, he makes a resolve of his own. His hand clenches into a fist, ready to honor her sacrifice. He promises to keep his word and makes his final choice. He doubts. A vision of Shiho appears, thanking him as her sacrifice is fulfilled. Miyakazuka can only stare back in utter, unhinged disbelief. Hayato explains that Miyakazuka never acknowledges his allies, and that fatal flaw has just cost him everything. Miyakazuka's manic grin shatters into pure, unadulterated shock. The penalty for his arrogance is swift and absolute. A spectral figure appears to carry out the final sentence, and in a brutal flash, the game's master is finally defeated. His reign of terror ends in a shower of digital light. The survivors can only watch as Shiho's life fades away. The virtual morgue begins to glitch and dissolve around them. Brandon puts a hand on Hayato's shoulder, declaring their debt is finally paid. Ami offers a tearful thank you for saving them all. But 2 men in suits appear, calling out Hayato's full name. They thank Hayato for saving them, admitting the project should have been stopped. The remaining survivors can only listen in silence, but a bandaged figure appears, radiating a strange, menacing energy. It turns its head with a sudden, sharp movement, and in a brutal flash, its existence is violently erased. Brandon notes the irony that Hayato was the one who proved the value of trust. Ami agrees, saying that from the very beginning, to the bitter end, the entire ordeal was nothing short of a nightmare. A final, desperate scream echoes across the now silent school grounds. Outside, the families of the fallen can only grieve their terrible loss. As the survivors finally step out into the sunlight, they hear a familiar name being called. A woman rushes toward them, and they wonder who she could be. But Brandon just smiles, waving back at his own mother. Hayato and Ami are completely stunned by the unexpected reunion. Just then, a small child runs toward Ami, calling out for his big sister. She embraces him, overwhelmed with relief that he's safe. Hayato watches as she's finally reunited with her family. But then, a voice calls out to him, a little girl running with open arms. He holds his sister close, finally home after surviving the nightmare. But his sister asks a question that stops him in his tracks. Where is their mom? A memory reveals the truth. She was arrested for fraud alongside her partner. Hayato recalls his frustration, wondering what she'd gotten herself into. He remembers the difficult days that followed, just the two of them. But he always did his best to take care of her, promising to make her favorite meal. They found happiness in the small things, a simple life together. The scene shifts to 6 months later, as Hayato and Ami visit a memorial. They've come to pay their respects to their fallen classmates. A monument stands as a pledge to never forget the sacrifices made. Just then, Brandon arrives, surprised to see them there as well. He makes a proposition to Hayato, a chance to team up and get rich. But Ami immediately steps in, telling him to leave Hayato alone. Brandon insists it's just business, nothing suspicious about it. The two of them share a tense, silent stare-down. But the moment breaks and the three of them share a laugh. Brandon then suggests they go out for a celebratory steak dinner. Hayato admits he can't afford it, but Brandon insists it's his treat. He gives a confident thumbs up, saying it's what friends are for. As they walk off together, Hayato hangs back for a moment. He looks up at the sky, a quiet, peaceful smile on his face. His friends call out, telling their leader to hurry up and join them.